All right, everyone, we are here recording pretty much under the wire for the timing of
Oh
this.
my gosh, yeah.
Like,
We
I
thought,
still have to compile a video after this.
yep, and we are supposed to release it in the morning, and we are also supposed to pack for our trip, so it's
I
going to
mean,
be
I'm pretty
interesting.
much already packed, so I'm like, I
Lucky
think I'll have
you.
enough. I think I'll have enough time for this.
Anyway, let's
right.
get to some reviews.
So yeah, I've dubbed this next chapter the Rubik's Cube chapter in the Discord.
Yes. And many of you know why, but we are a couple that gets along very well.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a husband beater, even though my dog seems to disagree. But Joe definitely threw me for a loop with this chapter because he usually tells me about plot twists beforehand, but he actually kept this to himself for a couple of years, and then
I kept this to myself since the beginning of the story was getting
and
started.
then he read it to me, and I was so angry about the plot twist that I threw the Rubik's Cube I was playing with at him. It took me months to get over being mad. I couldn't even listen to the story for a while because I was so angry. That being said, I've been waiting a couple of years now to release this chapter and share my pain.
You have just a little bit of an idea of what it's like being me. And how my patience has to be tested.
Yes.
That being said, let's go ahead and get on with the reviews from last chapter. I know we're releasing this next one a little bit early, so we don't have as many as we usually do. But we have some pretty good sized ones, so we'll start with Joe Clone.
All right, Joe Clone. Lighthearted with heavyweight topics. My favorites.
Yeah.
Lady Gaunt and Shadow. Oh man, what's cooking there?
Something really good.
Party time at Class A dorm. Sweet.
Yeah.
I love how Aerie just no question knows exactly what Eraserhead wants to do when it comes to Present Mike and indirectly misjoke. Am I to assume that behind the secured door is someone important?
You are to assume that.
Yang dating Togeda. I'm flabbergasted at how well that works.
Yes.
Also, he's got his permeation back? Was that little Aerie or big Aerie?
That was little Aerie, and if you remember back when Big Aerie was kind of settling into things, she had offered to rewind Lemillion to where he had his quirk back.
That's right.
And he declined, saying that it was something that little Aerie should build herself up to because he wanted her to have that confidence.
My heart. The Monoma scene. Yeesh. Kudai needs to learn to let go of his anger. It's obvious Monoma is trying to. And then the transition to Aerie conversing with him, no Umbra in the future? That spells doom. The fact that you had to had the gravitas of making Vestige 10 Kai ask the question made it all more frightening to consider.
Well, here's something else. Well, so real quick, something that I wanted to put in the narrative is that they both kind of come to conclusions maybe he did exist in the future, because it's just possible that he was more subtle with how he operated. But yeah, of course they don't know. That's part of what makes Umbra so scary, is that he is an unknown quantity even to someone who knows a lot about what's supposed to happen in the future.
Yep. Eating contest, not what I expected, but good fun to mask the extra shipping fodder. Until death was mentioned and Kudai tells everyone what heaven is like, which was beautiful if totally not traditional Christian interpretation of it.
I mean, it wasn't supposed to be. I definitely got inspiration from the Lord of the Rings depiction of the afterlife. I got my inspiration from a few different sources concerning how the afterlife might look. It's not meant to be it's not meant to be a accurate reference of what I believe heaven to look like in the afterlife.
I mean, I get it's anime. I guess what I would have wanted was a little more description of what hell looked like. A little counterbalance to the ultimate happiness for those who have chosen the paths of sin.
Interesting concept, but I honestly don't see what bearing that would have on their situation, and B, Kudai wouldn't really concern himself with that in the afterlife. That's not really his problem, for lack of a better term.
Interesting. All right.
There's definitely a hell, but it just hasn't come up in
Conversation
description
here. Okay. Roman meets Umbra. Umbra meets Mines. Was I correct in assuming he is Shadow? Or could it be an evil twin situation like Mataris and Crimson?
So, just for clarification, that was Shadow. I'll go more into why Shadow chose to take the name Umbra in that moment after this, after the audio chapter. You're almost onto something there.
Ending with Team Lightning drop photo again. Oh gosh, death flags are being raised. All right, thank you, Joe Clone.
Thank you for your review.
Alrighty, Silikita. Early release for next chapter? You? But since when? Did your wife threaten you with a Rubik's Cube again? Yes, I did. I 100% did. I hope I'm getting this in time for the recording session.
You did get this in time for the recording session.
Yes. And since I keep forgetting to ask my bonus questions at the end of these, I'll just shoot this one right now. What element would each of your original characters bend if they were in Last Airbender world?
Ooh.
Would they have any particular specialties? Not being Avatar cop-outs.
No being the Avatar cop-outs.
So
okay.
when he means OCs, like, is he talking about like just your OCs? Is he talking about...
I'm thinking like my original characters.
Okay.
He says each of your original characters.
Each of your... Okay.
Okay, so Mataris would be an earthbender. And I know that probably sounds like that's probably a little bit surprising considering Mataris has quite a temper on him. Most of the time that he's portrayed. That being said, one of his biggest traits is his stubbornness and his refusal to take any other path after he's chosen to go a certain way. It takes a lot to change his mind. So I would say that earthbending would be his style. I don't know that I would go so far as to make him a metal bender. I will say, like, he would be a metal bender. I'm not gonna pull out he can lava bend too, because that's just not his style. And he wouldn't be a sand bender either, because that's a little too free forming, I think. Because again, Mataris is largely based off of me and what I do. So I feel like metal bending would be the sub-variant that he would specialize in.
Interesting.
He wouldn't be a firebender, which I'm sure comes as a surprise to a number of people. Goran would be an airbender, because he wants to be free. He loves doing his own thing. Azura would be a firebender, 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. 100% Azura is a firebender. Saphira would also be an earthbender. Because it's noted a few times that her stubbornness is like the only one that can surpass her brothers. So I'm like, she if he could maybe metal bend, she definitely can metal bend. She'd be better at it. One of the things that I like about Mataris and Saphira's dynamic is that he is very frightening, and he portrays and carries himself as such. But next to her, he's not nearly as frightening, but she's a lot more reserved about it, which is part of what makes her so much scarier than him. But yeah, she'd be an earthbender, and metal bending subvariant. Gyatso, obviously airbender. He's the one who's in that story. And then I'm trying to think what Akarui would be. What do you think?
That's a toughie.
I'm like, I honestly want to say firebender. Almost.
I was about to say that.
I think, and he would use lightning.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because he could have to be cold and dispassionate when you do it. Akarui can 100% pull that off. So yeah, Akarui would be a firebender with a lightning specialty.
Nice.
I think that's all my original characters. Am I forgetting anybody?
Nope. I think that's all the main ones.
That's all the main ones. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, we'll move on to that. That was fun.
This opener scene gave me all kinds of chills, and I'm definitely excited for what may come of it. Also, really terrified. Due to a later scene, I almost wondered if Mataris/Shadow wasn't actually Umbra himself, and if he was, it would make sense how we knew to go and get Nagant from prison when she was released. I could even see him using his shadow persona to suss out of just how loyal to his plan she actually was. But I don't know. It doesn't quite feel like a thing a Mataris would do. I know in Shattered Fragment, he played the allied guild by giving them false promise of early freedom and then backed out at the last second. But this feels a lot more layered. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Mataris always seems to have a single goal in mind that he's aiming for. Umbra seems to be trying to achieve multiple things at once, whatever the grand scheme he has going on. Maybe this Mataris has really just stepped up his game, but something about that doesn't sit right with me.
Something to consider is that this is Mataris as he would have been written in my original novel, essentially. Like, this is his power, this is his disposition, this is when he's on top of his game.
That being said, I think he has a point.
Yeah,
I think he called himself Umbra in that last scene with Torchwick because it's a way for him to mess with anybody who might know anything about the real Umbra. There we go. A mind game to play specifically on bad guys. In other words, which is right up his alley. He clearly has a code of ethics. It's a weird and kind of twisted, but it's there.
Okay, so this guy understands the assignment.
He understands Mataris.
Okay, yeah, definitely. There's more to it than that, but yeah, him calling himself Umbra is definitely his own version of a mind game.
Long story short, I don't think he is Umbra. I think he decided to work for/with him and is just using the name for some reason that we don't know about yet. Or just spitballing here, but maybe Umbra has a quirk that lets him hijack people's bodies. Maybe he gains their intelligence as a collective over time, and that's how he's so smart and has never been caught. That would be really cool, because he can just move on to another host body, whether people are about to figure him out. Whenever people. Oh, yeah. I'm starting to scare myself with these theories. Moving on. That is a scary theory. That is a terrifying quirk.
That's oh my goodness, that's horrifying.
I think I know. That's like Orochimaru level.
Honestly, I almost wish I would have come up with that. Goodness.
That's straight up. That's Orochimaru.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah. My goodness, that's an Orochimaru quirk is what he just described. My goodness.
Frightening.
Oh, that's terrible.
And brilliant. I think I know what Eri did to make Aizawa cry like that. Now, I just want to know what she did to make President Mike cry after the, quote, camera cut away from them.
I would give details, but it's not appropriate for a rated T story.
Oh, honey.
No, it wasn't that bad.
Speaking of whom, I think Eri and Mina tie for the MVP in this chapter. You did something very interesting with their roles as supporting characters to Kudai in this that I feel should be taken special note of. That being how normally Mina's the one to be concerned with Kudai as an individual before worrying about the rest of her friends. Whereas Eri, the one who's actively trying to change their future by keeping an eye on how things are playing out around them. Granted, a lot is riding on Kudai being the 10th wielder of One for All, but overall, she knows where things need to change drastically as a whole, so that's what she focuses on. In this chapter, however, it's Mina who's the one to rally everybody as a group, while Eri takes the time to focus on Kudai and helping him heal. Not that either of them are out of character, far from it. It's just an interesting deviation from their usual scripts, and a good one at that. It really helps to sell each of their roles in this group's dynamic beyond being the MC's girl and sidekick. Not that these two have ever felt constrained to that, but it just helps to continue distinguishing it.
Interesting. I honestly hadn't thought about that.
You hadn't thought? Yeah. See, I thought that was like one of the first things I noticed because,
really?
I feel like Mina, again, neither of them is being out of character, but Mina is more like her original canon self. Like life of the party. Like, okay, let's stop being downers. Let's get it together.
Because I kind of wanted to, given the situation, I felt like if anybody in their class was going to be the one to try and get things going, it would be her.
Yeah. Absolutely. Long story short, I went back by accident.
It's
Whoops.
Here you go.
I'd say that Kudai needs to go back to therapy, but did his therapist die, or am I remembering that wrong?
You can get a new therapist even if your therapist dies, but yeah, his therapist died.
Either way, despite the way he handled Monoma, which was a very weird blend of cathartic and disheartening for me, I agree. I'm there with you. It was a real treat to see him take an active step in healing himself. There's a lot to be said for seeking help when it comes to this kind of trauma, but the real heavy lifting has to be done by the person who's been done in, as unfortunate reality as that may be. I'm glad to see that Kudai is moving past being, quote, functional into the realm of he is, quote, getting there. More than that, I'm glad we get to actually watch this part of it happening. Not saying that I want a montage of every single one of his therapy sessions, but it's kind of cool to see him make active use of the things that he would have had to learn while being institutionalized. You know, I like what you have to say there, because I think part of what makes characters realistic is they're not always going to make the right choice. Dynamic heroes aren't the perfect ones. They're going to be the ones who are kind of messed up, and they're trying, and they make mistakes, and they don't always handle things right, but they're moving forward, right? You don't want a character who's just wallowing in self-pity like he was earlier in the story when he had to kind of get his butt in gear.
Yeah.
But you also can't have a Gary Stu who just knows the right answer and magically has the emotional intelligence to just master everything, right? Yeah. And I think that this particular situation to me felt super real because I don't know, just a lot of personal stuff that's happened recently. I feel like often there'll be kind of like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. You know, it's like, you know, there's a little, forward. Exactly. So there's some progress that's happening, and it may not have been handled well. But
the whole thing with Monoma was not meant to be handled well.
No.
But I didn't want to make it seem like he was taking a total step back, because he isn't. But he did need to... I felt like it was time to address him. Like, he needs to start moving himself along.
And that being said,
she's like, you need to be able to forgive yourself.
Yeah, and that was really important. Even if his relationship with Monoma is not great, which I don't think it ever will be. But I think that was a trigger that needed to happen in order for him to get uncomfortable enough to fix it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it definitely triggered him, and he realized, oh, you know, I used to have self-control more than I do right now. What's the problem here?
I mean, I don't think he even really had a moment like that. I think Eri kind of had to smack it out of him.
Well, exactly, but that's the thing. It's just, you know, sometimes... Even if you're not
getting slapped a lot, it's funny.
Poor thing. Even if you're not thinking about why you're responding, I'm kind of explaining what is going on. All of a sudden, there's this thing. He's already uncomfortable, and this thing just pushes him over the edge of discomfort. And suddenly, he's reacting in this emotional way that's not super like him. And he needs to, you know, he has a friend there, thankfully, who can be like, get it together. This is not you. Get your head out of your butt. And deal. Yeah. Which needs to happen sometimes. Alrighty. Yang dating Togeda. Didn't see that one coming, but I love it.
I'm glad that that's so well received.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have absolutely no problem seeing that pairing happen whatsoever. Kaminari crushing on Jiro, cute. Don't worry, buddy. I think you have a better shot at winning her over without the grapist hanging off your shoulder in this canon. That is the best nickname for Mineta I've ever heard. I love it.
That's hilarious.
Sero hanging out with that girl who's going to be in the hero course next year. What? Bakugo being a goofy boyfriend? Or a good boyfriend. Like, he actively did something to protect another person's feelings? Like, I don't know what to do with that. No clue whatsoever. Yeah. Yep. Again, I was really taken off guard, but I was like, you know what? We do know, as mentioned in the previous podcast, that he is it is canon. It is canon in the OG canon that he is a sucker for rom-coms and romantic manga. Yep. So it's there. It's in there, deep down, but it's in there. Back to the scene with Mataris versus Torchwick and Neo. Our red swordsman is giving off serious slasher vibes right now.
Oh boy.
He seems to have caught up with the people who took off with his bomb, and he looks like he's about to have a field day with them for what they did.
You're not wrong.
I'd almost wonder if this wouldn't be the last that we see of them, except that I feel like Torchwick has something up his sleeve, even for a scenario like this one. If he's good enough to outwit Yakuza on his own, then I think he can get himself out of this, given the right opportunity. Not saying that Mataris is slipping or anything, but that he can't account for everything, just like when the bomb got stolen in the first place. No, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, just because someone is really powerful and smart doesn't mean they can't be outsmarted.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about Mataris is, like, he is by no means one of the most powerful players on the board. He just, like, he understands his limits and his capabilities very, very well, and he plays to all of his strengths to the max. And he, like, it may not seem like it, but he's actually very careful in how he approaches and executes his missions. He's very methodical. He leaves very little to chance whenever he engages. Doesn't hurt that he can telepathically check things out before he even gets somewhere. But that being said, like, if you put him in a power contest against a lot of the major players, like from the League of Villains or even the Heroes, he would, like, if it's just power versus power, he would lose flat out. Like, power versus power, he would probably lose to Kaminari. That being said, he could turn Kaminari brain dead before Kaminari had a chance to zap him. So it's about him knowing his strengths and knowing his enemy's weaknesses more importantly.
Gotcha. The closing scene was a great one. Running gags, genuinely fun and organic conversations between all of the characters, moments of reflections, a moment of a promised future. I don't know what you're about to do, but I hope your wife has the Rubik's Cube handy, just in case. I am enjoying this story, but Umbra is scaring me. Shadow Mataris is scaring me. Ares' promise at the end is scaring me. The number of good things happening before a major battle are scaring me. But nothing scares me more than how excited you are that you, of all people, conceded to release a chapter ahead of schedule. You're excited, and you being excited usually means literary sadism. Prepare the Rubik's Cube.
Literary sadism. I love that.
Couldn't have said it better myself, friends.
That is so good.
Could not have said it better myself. Well, I'm looking forward to plugging into Wi-Fi and
hearing people's responses to this chapter. Oh my goodness. This is going... Oh man, this is gonna be... I'm glad that I'm gonna be very far away from where I live. I don't think anybody actually knows where I live, but on the off chance that anybody ever finds out where I live, I'm glad that I'm gonna be away. My goodness.
Oh my goodness. Well, without further ado,
please enjoy this chapter. I hope you enjoyed at least a quarter of as much as I enjoyed
much anticipated on my end. I am sorry. I apologize in advance. Love you guys. I need you to suffer with me. I'm sorry.
I'm not apologizing.
So, here we go. What was in my past brought me to the end. I was stuck in limbo, hoping to be dead wrong. No, they took everything from me. Nothing left to see, burn it down slowly. Can't bury the truth, the past is far from dead. The chances we lose when we chose never to forget. When choices made, I fought the blame. The taste of blood was the beginning of the end. Beginning of the end.
Dawn of War. It's finally here. The one known as Umbra murmured to himself. The day we've planned and dreaded for so long. In the dark of the room that he called his home, the only light sources were from a quartet of monitors that hooked up to computers which were far ahead of their time. The space's only decoration was a revolving chair that sat empty, which he knew would soon change. Looking around the barren room, Umbra let out a sigh before he could catch himself, and then said, "Look at me, getting sentimental to no end. Your sorrow may not serve a purpose, but to feel even some measure of regret for what we've had to do is only human," said a voice that came from one of the monitors. "Even you have that capability, more so than many of the people we'll be dealing with today. And the merciless deserve no mercy." Umbra replied, his voice hardening. "I know that our mission is too important to set aside because of mere sentiment. I am not expressing a desire to change the mission." "No, I shouldn't think so," chuckled the other speaker, though they too sounded sad. There was a brief pause before they then said, "Thank you for standing beside me in all of this." "I should be the one saying that to you," Umbra snorted. "After all, you stand to lose far more than I do. You could have just blamed all of this on me, but you're choosing not to." In order for this plan to succeed, we both had to work our respective angles, and with the way that the hunt for you is progressing from UA's end, it wouldn't have been long before we would both be outed, Umbra's partner responded with a sigh of their own. However, it didn't take long for them to resume a more business-like tone as they added, "I take it that everything is in place for our friends at the HPSC?" "Like you have to ask." "I do, actually been a bit busy on my end of things." "Of course everything is ready." Umbra snorted again. "How many hours have we spent calculating the timetable for all of this?" "Well, battle plans never survive first contact, and our fight has been going on for some time," the other muttered. "As for me, everyone is in place as we predicted." "Including the team that'll be coming after me once these final transmissions go out?" "Even them." "Then I'll be ready for them and you." "Good," Umbra's partner stated. "Going dark until the grand reveal. See you in a few hours." "Understood. I'll be ready to go by the time they arrive." With that, the line of communication was severed, and Umbra was left in the dark that had formed his namesake. His last thought before the monitors all shut down was, "It's up to you now, heroes." "I still don't know that us splitting up was a good idea." "We talked about this." Kodai's brow bent downward as he went on to say, "Your powers will be best used against the enemies you'll encounter at the hospital. Mine are more of a match for open space combat against large groups. We have to consider the possibility that if the front does have any powerhouse surprises like Gigantomachia lying in wait for us out here, it'd be good to have me and Izuku on this front. Contingencies and all that. It's also a little too late to change our plans now." He was standing at the edge of the Gunga Mountains, looking down at the city that was about to become a massive battleground between the heroes and villains. His brother's latest invention had encased his body entirely, forming a suit that looked like black fabric layered with stylized white leather armor. It was very unlike his original outfit, but a short-sleeved gi design would have left his arms mostly uncovered, which would have prevented the nanoscopic pieces from serving their primary function in protecting his body. This costume had been inspired by the Princes of Zakul, characters from an old Star Wars game that had eventually been made into a movie shortly after quirks had finally started to fit into the modern age. It was the first movie Kodai had shown to his brother when they were younger, before Akarui was even allowed to watch the franchise, as their parents had wanted him to wait until he was a little older due to some intense imagery. Not that a child Kodai was going to let that stop him. In spite of the sudden change to his general aesthetic, the Guardian hero felt as though the costume fit him just as naturally as the one they had first designed for him. The saber looks a little more at home this way, too, he had thought with a grim sort of smile after first putting it on. Alongside Kodai were about half his classmates, including the other members of Team Lightning Drop, all of them dressed in their new suits of their own. As Ash's Queen was there, both the Ingenium heroes were also, with the elder brother seemingly switching between speaking to his sidekicks and someone over the radio, likely his medical team that was being stationed at Central Hospital in preparation for the massive casualties that they would no doubt be witnessing today. Further scattered throughout the area were many other heroes from dozens, if not hundreds of agencies, each of them practically vibrating with nervous energy. It was the calm before the storm, and while some may have called it worse to wait for the battle to come, the students of Class 1A knew that the worst of it was nowhere near them yet. "And what if the doctor wakes Shigaraki up early?" Eri asked him from the other side of the communicator. "The last time I fought him, it didn't exactly turn out well." She had been ordered to accompany Eraserhead and the others with Endeavor's strike squad, since they would likely be encountering Nomu, and she had the ability to negate their powers and turn them back to normal. "You're stronger now, and he's weaker than what you faced before, Izuku said, having joined in on the conversation with his own comm device that had been built into their new suits. Kurai and I believe in you, Eri. We know that you can take him. And if something comes up that we just couldn't have seen coming, I can be there in 10 seconds. The 10th wielder of One for All promised her. This won't be like last time, I swear. You're not facing this alone. There was a silence on Eri's end for a couple of seconds before she replied, All right, I'll hold you to that. And thank you. For what? Kurai inquired. I think I just needed to hear that. The girl answered with what sounded like a grin. There's few things more reassuring than knowing that your heroes are still looking out for you. Okay, don't jinx it, he said dryly. Good luck, Chronoa. Same to you, Kai. Sounds like we might be about to move out, so hopefully the next time I call, it'll be to tell you that we got them all in cuffs. The line was then disconnected, and Kurai turned to the rest of his classmates with a more serious look in his eye. Eri just told me that her team is about to engage, he reported, causing his friends to stir in place with a mixture of heightened apprehension and impatience. We're probably about to receive orders to move in ourselves. I guess this is it, Ochako said as she gulped nervously. Nothing's going to be the same after this, is it? Her costume didn't look too different from her old bodysuit, but the interchangeable matter was programmed to massage various pressure points continuously while she used her quirk, as to further extend her limit before her vertigo would overcome her. There were even anti-nausea medications that could be administered into her bloodstream when things got really bad, but those were more of a last resort than a normal preventative. Most likely not, Tenya agreed somberly as he glanced down at the force below them, where they could see an army regiment all preparing weapons while their commanding officers consulted among themselves. Like Ochako, his suit didn't look all that different, but its functions would serve to extend Recipro Turbo's runtime by more than half, as well as vastly reduce the time that he would need to cool down before using it again. But whatever may come, we shall endure it together, as we always have. Damn right, Kurai muttered before the two of them bumped fists. Struck by a thought, he then asked, Who's Tensei having watched things back at Central? I saw Scab a few minutes ago. I thought she'd be the one to take that job on. Pauses on it. His friend answered readily, to which Kurai nodded quickly. Yeah, that makes sense, he mused, though this only seemed to prompt intrigue from the other friends. Whose pause? Izuku inquired, even as a brush of wind swept his off-white cloak behind him, casting a rather heroic profile in the process. One of Ingenium's sidekicks, Mina answered before the boys could. He's been a rescue specialist for the agency since Tenya's dad was running things. He has a quirk that basically lets him put a stop to people's bodily processes for an hour after he touches them. It means that if someone's on the brink of death, he can usually keep them alive long enough to make it to a hospital so they can get the medical attention that they need, Kurai summarized. Glancing at Tenya, he then asked, If I'm remembering right, he can't use it on the same person consecutively, right? Unfortunately, the taller boy answered with a grim nod. He wanted to be out there today, but brother insisted that he stay with the hospital team. He seems to think that with the number of casualties we expect to see, it would be more prudent to keep Paz stationed where he will be able to affect as many people as possible, as opposed to having him run about on the battlefield, where we run the risk of losing a valuable medical asset, so to speak. Speaking of valuables, you're going to remember to let us have your back, yeah? Mina prompted her fiancé, to which he grinned nervously. She looked good in her upgraded outfit, he thought. The material had been arranged and shaded so that it resembled her old leotard's color scheme and pattern, though her midriff had what looked like a stylized armor corset that matched a set of gauntlets that rested on her forearms. The material was, of course, acid-proof, but the suit's function went far beyond that. Mina learned that not only would she be able to secrete acid from anywhere on her body without damaging the suit, the technology would work to pull in moisture from any available source, be it water that she was touching or even from the air around her, all in aid of keeping her hydrated, allowing her quirk to remain at full strength for far longer than normal. Even further, the suit could work on a cellular level to help her body naturally repair any damaged tissue as a result of overusing her quirk. Such things could not have been easy to implement, even for Akarui's superpowered solar intelligence. Which made the couple wonder just how long the boy had spent on this suit as opposed to some of the others. I'll be glad to have you with me for this one, Kurai started to say, doing his best to keep his mind in the present. Just don't worry, I'm not going to try and solo Shigaraki if he somehow manages to make it past Eri, Mina said with a roll of her eyes as she nudged him with her elbow, which led him to breathe a huge sigh of relief. But don't try and do all the protecting, okay? You need to let me protect you when I can this time so that you're ready for whatever surprise this army throws at us. Promise me you're not going to deny me that. I promise, he replied instantly as he gave her a brief, tight hug. As long as you promise to protect the civilians down there while you're watching my back. I haven't forgotten our job out here. she said as she returned the hug before they stepped away from one another with somber expressions on their faces. I can do my duty as a hero and your other half at the same time. Trust me on that? I will. He nodded sharply. It looked like he was going to add more, but then the pair was interrupted by a familiar snarl. Don't go getting yourself killed again, Hogasha. Bakugo growled as he came to stand at the edge of the cliffside in front of them. You do that and I'll kill you in the afterlife. At the moment, he looked to be wearing nothing more than a black and olive bodysuit, but his classmates had already seen how quickly his suit's true form could manifest, so no one dared to comment on the sight of Ground Zero missing his oversized gauntlets. Noted. Kurdai smirked while the others gave vent to various forms of disapproving sounds and gestures. The same goes for you. Got it? Ha! The blonde hero snorted. I'm not dying till I've shown everyone that I'm number one. The guy who's even greater than the Guardian Hero. At that, everyone, even Intenya and Weiss, had to smile just a little bit. I guess not everything will be different. Kurdai mused as he felt Mina's hand slide into his while he closed his eyes and did his best to prepare his body and mind for what was about to begin. You done with your little chit-chat? Eri raised an eyebrow at the speaker, who just happened to be the number 5 hero, Mirko. We haven't gotten orders yet, so it's not like I'm taking time off the clock, she said in a mild tone, which got the other heroine to scowl harder at her. Yeah, well, social cause ain't exactly the way to get your head in the game, the pro muttered as she swept her hair back from her face. You get distracted even a little bit in there, you're dead meat. I've been in these kinds of situations before, Eri replied firmly. I know what I'm about, trust me. The rabbit heroine snorted in response. I don't get why the hell your supervisor thinks he can just send you along with me. I don't do team-ups, and I definitely ain't going to look after you if you bite off more than you can chew. Fine, don't consider this a team-up. Eri shrugged as a breeze stirred her cape and allowed it to billow out behind her. Let's make it a contest. Really? Mirko laughed derisively. And what kind of contest do you think a rugrat like you is going to be able to keep up with me in? Our target is beneath the morgue, and I'd bet my hero gear that the way is going to be loaded with Nomu. The younger heroine replied as she looked at the woman out of the corner of her eye. Person with the most takedowns wins. Huh, the pro said with a slightly manic grin that reminded Eri of Bakugo. You're pretty sure of yourself, ain't you? Fine, we'll compete. But don't come crying when I get ahead and take them all out before you can even get through the door, little girl. Before Eri could make a reply, an unexpected voice interrupted the two of them. Don't discount Chronoa's abilities just because she's young, said Eraserhead as he approached the pair, his hands in his pockets. Normally he walked slowly when not in combat, as if too tired to properly commit to each movement. Today, though, he was walking with a clear sense of purpose. His back was straight, and his eyes were bright and alert. Stopping in front of the two heroines, he then looked at Eri and added, She's more powerful than anyone here, even Endeavor. I shouldn't have to remind you that she was one of the heroes who stopped Fleck Turn and the Idea Trigger bombs back in January. That was a team effort, and all teams do is cover for the weaknesses of the guy who can't hack it on their own, Mirko replied dismissively. Before she could add to that, the area was filled with a burst of bio-lightning that emanated from Eri's body while her hair and clothing was stirred up violently, and her eyes glowed in ominous crimson. Without even moving a muscle, everyone in the vicinity was briefly made aware of the fearsome power that dwelt within the young heroine, and those who had been watching from a distance retreated a few paces on instinct, save for Eraserhead and Mirko. However, as soon as it had come, the power faded away and left the trio standing relatively alone while Eri said, I was weak once upon a time. Now I have the power to take down the people who made me suffer, so don't think for 1 second that I won't use it. At the end of her declaration, she was nearly up in Mirko's face, who refused to budge even an inch from where she stood. Instead, a lazy grin spread across her face while she said, Huh. Maybe there is something to you after all, kid. I like the look you got in your eye right now. Then we're good? Eri asked, though she too did not move from where she had decided to take her stand. For now. Mirko grinned a little more savagely. We'll see if you can back up all that talk from you and your teacher, though. You better not disappoint me once this thing gets started. Same to you. The raven-haired heroine smirked before she stepped away and saw Aizawa regarding her silently. They maintained eye contact for a moment before he gave her a single nod and then moved toward Present Mike and a handful of other heroes who would be leading the charge into Jakku Hospital. No sooner than he had did Endeavor lumber into view, flames alight and eyes burning with intensity. It's time, he rumbled, sending a thrill of adrenaline through the bodies of every hero who was present. You all have your orders. If we fail this task, All for One's most dangerous henchmen will escape, and more innocent lives will be at risk. We cannot allow that to happen under any circumstances. As the heroes around him let out various sounds of approval, Eri allowed the power of One for All to fill her body along with the thought, this day is my time's chance to set itself back on course. So I'm not going to give it the opportunity. If I can't find a way to prevent it, then I'll make one. I got a hit! Akarui panted as he flung the door to Nezu's office open again, causing him and Taiyang to shoot up to their feet. Weeks of waiting and sorting through data, but I've got him. It's him. It's Umbra, the boy said as he tossed his phone to Nezu, who looked at the display with no small measure of surprise. How did you find this? He asked after looking back up at the boy. The last time we tried to trace his signal, we had a direct line to him, and we couldn't pull it off. How did you manage it? He didn't contact you again, did he? Taiyang added, looking pensive. No, the only people he's contacted today are with the commission, Akarui said with a rapid shake of his head. I didn't just use my last days with my quirk to design the ultimate hero suits for my friends. I used them to create a program that would let me find Umbra, if he was ever stupid enough to contact the outside world again. I used one of the only things that is unique to him in order to track him down, his voice scrambler. His scrambler, the American repeated dubiously, even as Nezu's ears pricked up in surprise. You created a program to listen for the filter he created whenever it happens to travel over an airwave coming from the Safety Commission's offices, the small principal surmised, to which Akarui nodded excitedly. It took up all the processing capabilities on 5 of my best computers to manage all the data that needed to be sorted. That guy ran his voice through a filter that could have been generated by a freaking quantum computer, so I couldn't reverse engineer the original audio to match the voice print. But just 10 minutes ago, I got a ping, he told them. There is no other filter that works like that in real time. Trust me, I've looked into it. You might be able to alter a voice like that in post-production, but wait, this isn't important. Point is, I tried calling you guys from my office, but you weren't picking up. Seriously, kid, how many computers do you have? Also not important right now. Sorry, we were just conferring with Crow and All Might about the preparations in the field that our students are involved in. Nezu apologized. I saw the call coming in, but I thought these topics to be more important. I'm insulted that I rank that low on your list of priorities, but I get it, Akarui said as he waved his hands dismissively. Point is, I know where he's been broadcasting from now, or at least one of the places. Guy like him probably wouldn't stick to one hideout. He'd have several backups waiting, just in case somebody discovered him, either on purpose or by pure chance. Either way, if we don't find him at the address that I found, it'll give us a more solid lead to go off of than a voice that's been altered beyond recognition before it reaches our ears. Wait, did you hack a government database and violate half the privacy laws that have been written on the subject to do this? Taiyang demanded. No, don't be ridiculous, Akarui replied, looking offended by the thought. I tapped the computers and phones of the people who have already been bugged by Crow to listen for any signs of Umbra. You didn't get a warrant for that. Oh, bite me, Akarui snapped. We have bigger problems than procedures and protocols right now. Crow will probably just tell people that he enlisted my help if it'll help us avoid an obstruction of justice charge. This information is turning stale as we speak. Are we going to go get this guy or not? A swift pursuit would be in our best interest in this instance, Nezu mused as he put his paws together on the table. We have a group of students on standby here at UA who are unable to get work studies because of the timing of their arrival in this country. But with my permission, they can track down Umbra and arrest him. Team Juniper? Akarui asked, to which Nezu confirmed with a nod. Alright, I've seen them in action. They're better than a lot of pros I can name, and they're technically supposed to be sitting this one out, so maybe we'll be able to take Umbra by surprise. Plus, we don't exactly have the personnel to spare on the off chance that this is a trap being set up for me. Huh. You don't sound very confident about that last part. Yeah, I'm really not, the boy admitted. This guy has outsmarted me in spectacular fashion, and now I don't have my quirk. There's also the fact that the timing on this discovery is way too suspect. Finding the hidden big bad the same time that all of our usual go-to teams are out on the job seems grossly convenient. But I can't keep track of all the variables that I used to be able to, so I can't guarantee any absolute certainties. I mean, not that I ever could before, but look, all I can say for sure right now is that their team is a wild card that may be even more capable than Team Ruby, who are already pretty amazing. Any other pro we could think of to call on right now is otherwise occupied, so they're our best shot at taking down this lunatic, provided that I've really managed to find him. And I'll be going with him, Taiyang said in a tone that brooked absolutely no arguments from anyone. Crow's already out in the field, which means that I'm the only one from the Second Amendment who can look after them in person. I've already failed to protect my girls and their team, but maybe I can keep their friends safe. All right, we get one actual pro on this thing. Even better. Akarui grinned, a little glint of anger hiding behind his eyes as he did. Do us a favor when you catch this guy, smash every piece of tech that he's got in his hideout for me. You're really still mad about the laptop. Did I stutter? Akarui snarled. Smash them all, I said! Gentlemen, if you could please keep your voices civil. Nezush cut in before a shouting match could start. Hikari, if you could provide logistical support for Team Juniper from here at the school, it would be much appreciated. You got it, the boy said sharply. There's a few functions in their new suits that should help them against advanced enemy tech, just in case Umbra booby-trapped his lair. Excellent, the principal nodded quickly. Xiaolong, if you could please gather Team Juniper and head out to the coordinates that Hikari has prepared for us. Yeah, where even is this guy? The older man asked as he stood up from the chair he had been occupying. Oh, you guys are going to love this, Akarui deadpanned. The signal I pinged is being sent out from here in Mustafu. As the two heroes stared at him in stunned disbelief, Akarui shrugged and said, Fits what we know of him. Arrogant enough to think that we can't catch him even if he was right under our noses. To be more specific, the prick is hiding in an office complex across the street from Kyoshi Ward Mall. There was a brief moment of silence before Taiyang started toward the door while saying over his shoulder, Send me the address. I'm going to tear this guy to pieces for what he's done. As the door slammed shut behind him, Akarui cringed and asked, Are we sure it's a good idea to send that guy after Umbra? He might not think clearly enough when the time comes. Xiaolong is rather protective of his daughters, but there are very few heroes who can match his battle instincts, Nezu assured his young charge. Believe it or not, he is quite the master at handling his emotions while in a fight. I trust him with this. As long as you do. Akarui shrugged as he scratched the back of his head. Turning toward the principal, he then added, I'm going to go get ready to direct them from my room. Maybe check in on Kurai, provided the battle hasn't started yet. All right. I'll be sure to check in when I have the chance, the principal replied. If they do manage to capture Umbra, please inform me the moment that they do. I'll give your call priority this time, I promise. Akarui grinned as he walked to the door. Much appreciated. Then he was gone, and Nezu was left alone to look at a photo on his desk with a drawn-out sigh. Let us hope this is truly the end of All for One's legacy, he said to the picture of him and All Might, the year that the young man had won the UA Sports Festival. If we fail this time, we may not get another chance, hoping that our students still manage to get it right amid this horrible business of war. In spite of all the precautions they had taken, no matter every advantage that they had gained thanks to Eri and Akarui's efforts, the little animal couldn't shake the feeling that there was something coming beyond the capabilities of the factors they had taken into account. We've trained them as best we can, he thought in resignation as he turned to face the windows that offered a view of the distant mountains. All that's left is for those of us relegated to the sidelines to have faith. Mina watched Izuku and Kurai talking in lowered tones, with the taller boy making gestures toward a few landmarks that could be seen in the city in front of them. Tenya, Shoto, and Ruby pitching in with a few comments of their own every now and again. Looking at the pair of them, she couldn't help but replay the conversation she'd had with Akarui that morning before they left the campus as she watched. The paint girl had expected a quick farewell from the younger boy once he had talked to Kurai for a moment, but he had surprised her with a request for a private talk. I'll be watching his back as often as I can, I promise, she had told him as soon as they had moved away from everyone else who had been getting ready to leave. Mina had been even more surprised when Akarui had shook his head in a negative motion and told her, I'm not worried about him today. At least ways, not in the traditional sense. What? Mina, the boy had said with the same look in his eyes as when he had told her the tale of the Hogersha's blood oath. I'm more worried about you than anyone else today. Under normal circumstances, such a declaration would have warmed her heart, but that morning all it did was send a nice shiver up her spine and into her horns. That's really sweet of you. She had tried to laugh, though it came out more like a dry wheeze than anything humorous. Even so, she went on to insist, I'm a big girl. I can handle myself, I promise. I don't doubt that, provided you go into battle knowing something that I realized while I was making plans concerning this day, he had replied, the look in his eyes not wavering for even a split second. I'd bet my net worth that you're going to be on the enemy's top 10 list today. That is to say, whenever you run into an enemy, you cannot pull your punches if it means that there is even the slightest chance of it meaning your death, or worse, capture. Aki, what are you talking about? She had asked him, all pretenses of humor gone. You're kind of scaring me. Good, he had replied in a short tone. Be scared today. Fear will keep you sharp, which will keep you alive. The League of Villains, the core members of Shigaraki's forces, are going to come for my brother in this war. Whether it's for its quirk or for a personal vendetta, they will be after him, which makes you the prime target. If they have any brains among them, which Dabi and Compress unfortunately seem to have covered, They'll have realized that no number of disposable minions are going to weaken Kurai enough to make a difference before they're forced to face him themselves. The only way to wound him is through what and who he loves with all his heart. Me, she had whispered. Her gaze had sharpened before adding, that makes you pretty high on their hit list too. Yeah, but I'm not going to be on the front lines for this mess. The boy had shrugged with a tone of resignation. If things go sideways today, I'm sure they'll come for me when it suits them, but I'm not throwing myself into the danger zone, so to speak. Mind you, they'll be gunning for me, all of his friends, but you're the crown jewel for them, the instant ticket to bringing the mighty Kai to his knees. You get what that means? I hadn't stopped to think about it, she had been forced to admit, but I do understand what it means for me. And it doesn't change what I have to do. No threat to me ever will. Akarui had regarded her with shrewd eyes as her classmates were called ahead by Aizawa before he said, as long as you are sure. He had then darted forward to throw his arms around her and whisper in a choked voice, take care of yourself, sis. I don't want to lose any more of my family to this insanity, got it? It had taken her a couple of seconds, but she had returned the hug along with the words, I love you too, little bro. We'll see each other once this is over. We better. But if you ever tell anyone about what I just said, it never happened. He had warned her as they pulled away from each other. He was smiling through a hint of tears as he had promised, you will never hear me say otherwise. I will deny it tooth and nail. A similar smile creased her face now, which apparently prompted Ochako to sidle up to her and ask, what you thinking about? Huh? The pink girl replied, a little distracted by the now fading memory. Sorry, did I miss something? We just thought you looked like you knew something good. Figured if you felt like sharing the good mood before it all goes away. Yang said from her other side, causing Mina to wonder when she'd even gotten there. Not much of that going around today, you know? Just remembering what Aki told me before we left. Mina answered, her smile fading away just a little as she did. Is it weird that... What's up? Yang asked, none of her usual playful energy present as she did. Did he ask you to do something for Kurai that you're not sure you should do? No, nothing like that, Mina quickly assured her friends, having seen that Asui was also present and listening. It's just that I talked to my parents and my brothers a little bit after the announcement, and while they tried to talk me out of going through with all this, they were supportive of me once they realized I wasn't going to change my mind. I even got my brothers to admit that they were worried about me. At the last part, she let out a wry chuckle before saying, it was just... something about Aki's goodbye this morning hit different. Like, he knew that he needed to talk to Acid Queen instead of plain old Mina Ashido. Is that wrong? That I feel better having talked to him instead of my own family? Girl, there ain't nothing plain about you. Yang grinned, to which the other girls nodded in agreement with. But I know what you're talking about. Really? I may be a hot blonde, but I can pay attention every now and again, the American replied, some of her usual bounce and energy returning to her demeanor as she did. The way I see it, it's kind of like how my dad talks to me in Rubes, but Uncle Crow has a way of talking to Firecracker and Crescent Rose when it comes to hero time. Dad's not bad at pep talks, but I think he just has a hard time letting go of his little girls when stuff like this comes along. Our uncle loves us too, but he's able to take a step back sometimes, which we really need. I definitely wouldn't say that it's wrong to feel more encouraged by whatever Akarui told you, Ochako said with another nod. He loves his brother, and it's pretty clear that he cares about you too. If he was able to help you come to terms with what's about to happen, I'd take it as a blessing, you know? So what if he's not your natural brother? Asui mused as she put a finger to her cheek, as she often did when she was in thought. I don't remember hearing anything about how family are the only ones allowed to cheer you up when you're stressed out. Ochako's right, Vivid. Your family and Kurai did their best to help you, but if someone else was able to help you settle things in your head, it's still a good thing. You guys are good friends, Mina said as a more sheepish expression crossed her features, causing them to smile at her in turn. I'm here worrying about random crap while we're standing on both the figurative and literal edge of war, and you take the time to make me feel better. Hey, if you feel like you owe us, convince your man to let me take that bike of his out for a spin one of these days. Yang grinned a little brighter. It's been way too long since I burned any rubber. You might have better luck convincing Shigaraki to become a hero than getting Kurai to lend anybody his motorcycle. Ochako grinned, which finally got a round of chuckles out of the girls. The heroes walked into the Jakku hospital waiting area with no intention of waiting for anything or anyone. While most of the staff and patients inside gaped at the large assembly of enforcers, one man hailed them down and urged them to follow him into a hallway, which many of them moved to do so immediately. As he led this group, Endeavor growled over his shoulder, "Mirko, Chronoa, the morgue! I'm on it!" Mirko's words were cut off as Chronoa sprang into action, lightning crackling after her. She leaped across the room, clearing the entire area in a single bound in order to barrel down the path that her new suit's navigation system had laid out for her. The rabbit heroine, not willing to be outdone by any means, let out an enraged shout as she gave chase after the younger girl, leaving behind a number of heroes who looked either bemused or annoyed that such a top-ranked pro would be acting so childish right then. "They better do their jobs," Endeavor growled as Eraserhead came to walk with him near the front of the column, alongside Present Mike and a couple of other pros tasked with restraining their target. "They will," the dark-haired pro said tersely as the sound of shifting dust preluded the formation of what looked like reflective lenses on his eyes, making it impossible for anyone to tell which way he was looking at any given time. As I followed their inside man who had been able to keep track of All for One's doctor, his muttering became a scowl that said, "Let's make sure that we do ours." After that, it wasn't even a minute before they sighted their quarry, who was walking away from them and whistling a merry tune as if he hadn't a care in the world, very clearly unaware of the threat to his well-being that was now lurking right behind him. Before Endeavor could even call out for Dr. Garaki's attention, Eraserhead's hair floated upward, and the man fell to his hands and knees, some great weakness apparently crippling him to the point of immobility. So, his registry is a lie. Tsukuyomi mused as they came closer, the reason for their target's near paralysis quickly becoming clear with an unobstructed view. He does have a quirk. "The second you activated Erasure, he aged," Endeavor confirmed for the others as they all came to stand fairly close behind them, behind the now crawling, decrepit doctor. "I suppose this explains how All for One has lived for so long." "Ow!" Garaki wheezed, trying in vain to escape from his doctors, but the heroes were not having it today. Before the ancient man could even get a second word out, a cloud suddenly enveloped him and hauled him to his feet, though it kept him suspended off the ground, preventing him from being able to move. "Wait, this..." The man's sunken eyes widened with horror as he recognized the power responsible for capturing him. "It can't be..." "Hey there, Doc," said a young hero with pale blue hair and a chilling smile on his face as he was flanked by an oddly tense Present Mike. "Been a while, hasn't it? I never got to say thanks for all you did for me." Garaki's eyes widened so much that it was a wonder they didn't just fall out of his head as he managed to gasp out, "Kurogiri?" "The name's Oburo Shirakumo, thanks," the young hero replied, the light in his eyes hardening to a degree that even Endeavor was a little intimidated by. "But I guess that name doesn't matter much right now, because today you're the devil's pawn and I'm the hero who gets to bring you in. Loud Cloud!" "We're on!" Vernon shouted to the assembled heroes, sending them all into action, charging down the mountainside, even as the troops below them began their own advance. "Remember to hold back until the civilians have been evacuated, but once they're out of the way, our orders are to exterminate the League and Meta Liberation flunkies with extreme prejudice." There were some growls of affirmation from scattered points along the massive heroes, but many of them said nothing in the way of acknowledgement. The time had come. The nightmare was upon them. Before the day was done, blood would be on their hands, one way or another. "If we kill the villains, we shed blood," Kai thought as he led the stampede alongside Deku and their girls. "If we don't kill them and they kill someone innocent because of our inaction, then their blood is our responsibility." Aravity had made herself float and grabbed onto the Greenette's back so that he could pull her along at top speed, while the Guardian hero had snagged Ashley Queen around the waist with his black whip and was pulling her along while she used acid from her feet to slide effortlessly down the rocks. Textbook damned if we do, damned if we don't. And yet, there was something to be done soon, he knew. It would be in mere moments, and when that time came, Kai knew what had to be done in order for his friends to live through the hell that they were entering, and that only he could do what was needed. "I've done it before. I have to do it again." "Hey, am I the only one seeing this?" Ground Zero shouted, his voice surprising several of the others who had direct communication lines to his new suit's comm. "What the hell's going on down there?" As he flew overhead, he took a moment to point out the main highway that ran through the city, where the heroes could now see swarms of people leaving via car and on foot on either end of the main road. "Are the civilians already evacuating on their own?" Mirtanaster yelled in disbelief. "How'd they know to do that?" Deku asked, looking just as bewildered as the next hero. "There was no warning from the Commission or the Army about the villains being stationed here, or our plans to fight them." "They're already out in the open!" Firecracker growled in frustration. "They're sitting ducks at the front, decides to attack them." Maybe, but it also gives us less ground to cover, Crescent Rose countered as she shot up into the air for a more elevated view alongside Ground Zero. If we can get there fast enough, we don't have to worry. We don't need as many heroes to protect a group of people like that. We don't have to go door to door and spend time getting everyone out one building at a time. She's right, Kai yelled to be heard over the stampede thundering above and behind him. We'll have to get in close to make sure that those really are civvies instead of the front members. But if this is what it looks like, our job's just got a whole lot easier. But how? Mirtanaster demanded again. How could they have known to leave before the battle even started? The commission put all the heroes in the know under a strict gag order. We'll figure it out later, Freezerburn answered shortly. Right now we need to focus on the task at hand and get this battle over with so we don't face a drawn-out war like before. Right! Shouted most of his classmates, even as Ground Zero and Mirtanastra moved to go spread the word alongside Burnin, who had also noticed the bizarre development down below. Still, in spite of his insistence that they focus on the coming battle, Freezerburn couldn't shake the sudden feeling that he was being watched by unseen eyes. Either none of this adds up or it adds up too well, he thought as the incline started to level out, and his heart started pounding even more rapidly. His first thought was that it could be Umbra working another angle, but other than the mysterious villain being the only one ambitious and or capable enough to pull off such a thing, he couldn't fathom the reasoning behind the move. Someone is arranging all of this, even if it isn't him. The real question is why, and to serve what agenda. Are you ready, Kaminari? No, but when am I ever? The blonde hero muttered in an aside to his avian-headed classmate. As he and Tokoyami looked down at their new outfits, he did add, I guess if nothing else, I'm real glad that we get to fight in these things. It feels so safe. His new suit hugged his body snugly beneath his jacket and pants, which he had elected to keep from his old costume. The programmable matter had been stylized to show golden lightning bolts rippling down on his arms on top of a black backdrop, and the nanoscopic pieces could change shape into any piece of equipment that they needed, such as polarizing discs he used to make distance attacks without risk of hurting allies and bystanders, or protective lenses to avoid getting blinded by his own power. It also automatically circulated any excess electricity that he might discharge back into his suit, potentially keeping it stored for later use, thus increasing the number of times he could attack before his brain copped out from the strain. Indeed, these are magnificent gifts to be bestowed upon us, Tokoyami said in agreement. I hope that they will aid in our successes today and hereafter. However, we must be careful not to assume victory because of their application in this battle. His suit was also form-fitting, with a likeness of dark red wings spreading across his pecs, though it was noticeably lacking the large cloak that was known to conceal his body so that he could keep up Dark Shadow's strength, even in broad daylight. This was due to a function of his suit that was only visible to the human eye if one looked closely enough to see a mirage-like shimmer around his body, a refracting field that kept sunlight from even coming into direct contact with Tokoyami's body at any given point, thus allowing him to keep Dark Shadow at full strength, no matter what the lighting conditions were. He could even conjure an armored Raven-style helmet to go over his head and completely cover his body, but unfortunately his quirk itself would remain vulnerable to bright lights. Even so, the suit had essentially negated one of his biggest weaknesses in its entirety, and with all the work that Tokoyami had put into mastering his quirk when it was at its strongest, he was confident that his presence on the battlefield was going to be an even more pronounced one than their supervisors had guessed. After all, when trying to tame a savage beast, it's best to have a handy food supply at the ready, and the villains could certainly be considered as such to Dark Shadow when it was free to cut loose. The pair of young heroes were set to move in on the Paranormal Liberation Front's current HQ, an estate in the Gunga Mountains, where their top commanders were supposedly gathered, San Shigaraki himself. Due to the nature of their quirks and their applications and potentially dealing with multiple strong opponents at once, they had been asked to join the vanguard, which the pair had agreed to. Kaminari still had reservations about this, but thanks to Deku and Kurai's plan, he knew that they had a good shot at making it out of this first encounter. Who knows, maybe we'll even manage to make a major difference in what happens? The electric-themed hero had thought with a nervous grin. Man, this tension's killing me. Hey, Tokoyami, he found himself asking before he could stop the words. Yes. This is probably a dumb question, but do you ever get scared? Kaminari inquired, his words halting as if they were difficult to speak. Like, I know that, well, Dark Shadow used to get out of control, and obviously that'd terrify anybody, but other than that, of course I feel fear, Tokoyami answered, though not unkindly. As we speak, my heart pounds in my chest like a war drum, because I am forced to contemplate the notion that, in spite of all the advantages that we have gained leading up to this battle, the truth is that we may not live to see the next sunrise. Only a fool would face such circumstances without at least some measure of fear. Kaminari allowed those words to sink in for a moment while sweat slid down his neck before he said, "Looking at you, I never would have guessed it. You always look so cool and calm like Todoroki and Hikari do when they're about to get into a major battle." His friend folded his arms at that while saying, "I am humbled that you equate my temperament to that of our guardian hero. I suppose you might say that I sympathize with his reasons to clench his fists whenever trouble comes our way, so to hear that my emulations of his character bear such a resemblance is quite heartening." Kaminari blinked a couple of times before he said, "Those were definitely some words you used just now." Tsukuyomi favored him with a rare smile before he explained, "I am not like Hikari in many ways, but hearing that I have managed to give off a similar presence makes me rather happy to hear. I too want to protect my friends and all they hold dear, and to have you say that I am like him is truly encouraging." Ah, the blonde grinned again, a little more assuredly this time. "I mean, I think Hikari has something, or more like someone, that he fights for harder than any of us ever could, but I get wanting to protect all our friends and all that. I just wish you'd help me be cool like you guys." "You are cool," Tsukuyomi informed him bluntly, causing his friend to do a double take in shock. Seeing this, the jet black hero shrugged and went on to say, "Believe it or not, I have seen Hikari visibly show fear. He has not always faced terror and death as the unshakable pillar you seem to believe he is." "Wait, when was this?" Kaminari had to ask. "Even when he fought that crazy Nomu in the fall, he didn't show any fear that I could see. Did I miss something?" "No. This was in the forest when the League attacked us in the dead of night," Tsukuyomi replied, his tone having gone grave. "We were under attack by moonfish. I had only just gotten Dark Shadow under control, Shoji was injured, and Hikari could barely see. Truly dire circumstances by anyone's measure. When he realized who was after us, I hardly recognized him for his fear. Even so, he did his duty as a hero and our friend by sacrificing his arm for Bakugo's sake. Just as we are about to take to the front lines of this battle so that our comrades do not bear the brunt of our enemy's wrath." Kaminari chuckled while rubbing the back of his neck. "You make me sound a lot cooler than a guy who just didn't want to lose face in front of his friends and the one guy who's got more right to complain than anybody." His classmate fixed him with a steady gaze before he told him, "You are a magnificent hero in the making, Kaminari. Showing your fear, even on the battlefield, does not diminish that potential. And if I'm not mistaken, your ability to sympathize with Hikari outclasses my own." "Huh?" "I'm saying," Tsukuyomi replied as he turned away to look further up the column, where they could see the beginnings of some movement from the prose, "that like Hikari, you have something precious that you would willingly give your life for. Something that means more to you than the bonds that Class 1A has forged together as a collective." Against his will, Kaminari's thoughts drifted back in time to his memory of performing in their class's concert. He had been disappointed that he wouldn't be able to play in the band, but once he saw one of his classmates in particular begin to grow into a role with a greater passion, his own feelings about the matter became inconsequential. It didn't matter if he wasn't where he wanted to be. He would do whatever he could to make sure that her showing was a success. "I wonder if..." "Hey, Tsukuyomi," he asked even as the stirring at the head of their regiment started to spread. "If we both survive this, can you do me a big favor?" "Of course." The other student nodded firmly. "What would you have of me?" "Remind me to ask Jiro if she'll teach me to play guitar when this whole stupid thing is over with," he replied with a wobbly smile. "It's probably not the lesson that Hikari wants us to learn from him, but after that whole thing on Nabu, I should have realized that our lives are way too short to be tiptoeing around stuff that scares us. I gotta man up if I want to get anywhere, right?" "Indeed," Tsukuyomi answered with a serious nod. "As you wish, I shall remind you of this request when we both see the other side of this conflict alongside our classmates. Though, if you would permit me to ask, why do you need a reminder when it seems your heart is set on what you should do?" "I still think that I might chicken out if I just keep this to myself when the time comes." "This is the building?" Jean asked as he and Taiyang regarded the small office complex in front of them. "It doesn't look special at all." "I'm sure that's the idea," Pure replied as her emerald eyes regarded the building carefully. "You don't really expect a guy like Umbra to advertise his hideouts, do you?" Akarui snorted from the other end of his comms that had been built into each of their new suits. "This is the building where Hikari managed to trace the enemy's signal," Taiyang warned his young charges. Remember, if he is in there, Umbra is someone whose intellect surpasses Nezu and Hikari both. We can't afford to take this lightly. Trust me, sir, we won't be. Jean replied, a hard light coming into his deep blue eyes. This creep is responsible for the mess our friends are in right now. We're not exactly in the mood to play nice. He'll be lucky if his legs are the only thing that I break, Nora said with a slightly deranged grin plastered on her face as some of the material that made up her suit shifted and congealed in her hands until they resembled the hammer that she had employed for combat. Where do I start smashing? Ren will take point for the entry, but be ready to switch formation if I call for it, Jean ordered as he willed his own weapons to form out of his suit, quickly generating a sturdy shield and a sword honed to an impossibly narrowed point. He took a moment to be impressed at the fact that they felt exactly the same in his hands as his old gear did before he turned to Pyrrha and said, I need you to bring up the rear. You think your quirk will work against any machines this guy may have set up? My quirk affects all metallic objects capable of magnetic interactions. She nodded with a fond smile at her leader. Unless he somehow manages to make machines out of plastic, we should be good. Seriously, Jean, Nora said as Ren moved toward the door, daggers in hand. Where do I swing this thing? Right at Umbra's head the first chance you get, the blonde boy answered as Taiyang followed Ren, a pair of well-loved gauntlets adorning his arms, similar in appearance to Yang's armaments, though they were decidedly more sturdy-looking. Sir, we're ready. Good, the man muttered, because I get the feeling that our enemy is too. Now this is what I'm talking about! Mirko shouted with a feral grin as she and Chronoa skidded to a halt in a darkened corridor that was now teeming with grey Nomu. Her powerful leg muscles flexed as she prepared to tear through the monsters with impunity, even as the lightning encasing the younger heroine's body began to crackle with greater intensity. Remember, don't kill them, the girl muttered as she took a ready stance. I need them alive to turn them back to normal. Strictly speaking, this was not true for Chronoa, but she knew it was better to keep her ability to revive the dead under wraps as much as possible, as to avoid questions that she knew were best left unanswered. That's fine by me. Wouldn't want this to be easy, Mirko replied before she took off, her partner hot on her heels. Together, the pair made short work of the gray-skinned monsters, with the rabbit heroine mostly taking the lead so that Chronoa would be met with no resistance when she activated Rewind to turn them back to their human selves. The process was shocking enough to the restored individuals that they were all left as unconscious heaps on the floor that would be collected by the police and other heroes at the first opportunity. Within minutes, the two heroines crashed through a large door into a massive room lined with huge vats that glowed an ominous purple, an image that Chronoa had seen many times through surveillance footage captured by the UA Alliance in the future. Seeing them caused her to falter for a half second, but she recovered her faculties in time for Mirko to turn toward a trembling, rotund figure that the women recognized as Dr. Garaki. What's up, Doc? Mirko sneered as the rubble around them crashed to the ground while Chronoa regarded the man with a silent, neutral look that was entirely at odds with the chaos of the noise surrounding them. Endeavor says the one upstairs is a double, so I'm guessing you're the real one. Before she could say another word or move toward their target, the room shuddered with an unmistakable air of menace and power that preluded a red and blue blur smashing into the doctor, snapping his left leg like a twig in a savage strike to the throat that crushed his vocal cords, just enough to cripple his ability to speak, but not quite off-cut his air supply in its entirety. Chronoa stood over the man with his arm twisted into a painful lock, her horn glowing brightly as bioelectricity continued to stir up her hair and cape. Give me a reason to kill you, old man, she hissed with the venom that took Mirko back for a second. Make my day. Where the hell did that come from? She could only wonder, not having expected such a violent outburst from the softly spoken kid she had been ordered to take along. Garaki could only wheeze pitifully, unable to even properly scream out his agony as he felt his body begin to age, further exacerbating the wounds he had just been dealt. Forget trying to awaken the high-end Nomu. It was a struggle for him to even breathe properly. Had he been in a clearer frame of mind, he might have wondered at the accuracy with which she had known to strike his body in order to swiftly cripple, but not kill, someone like him. His suffering wasn't over either. Your quirk is gone, Chronoa snarled, the lightning generated by her power flaring even brighter than before. How do you like that, thief? You helped All for One steal so many powers, so many lives. Now the quirk that helped you to do it is gone. Not only that, you're going to lie here and watch as I undo everything that you spent the last 100 years working to accomplish, and it won't take me 5 minutes to do it. The man was starting to struggle, seemingly in protest, so Chronoa snapped the arm that she was holding at the joint, her eyes glittering with an unrestrained malice as Mirko could only watch the scene unfold. Holy shit, this kid's even crazier than I am! She thought with its widened eyes as she watched the now ancient doctor writhe on the ground in unspeakable pain. You killed my friends, turned some of them into Nomu, helped the League of Villains steal the childhood that my heroes paid for with their blood and lives! Chronoa screamed as the lightning began to strike at the machines around them, damaging nodes and terminals at random while Garaki was forced to witness it all happen in relative silence. I've been waiting for this, Doctor. Now I'll pay you back with interest! Let's do this. Mudman shouted as he and the other 3 UA students charged out into the open, where an army of heroes preceded them, all of them ready to go to work now that Cementos had torn the gates down to the enemy fortress. He was decked out in a programmable matter suit like the rest of his classmates, but at first glance, it didn't appear all that different from his old outfit. However, it was another matter entirely for how it felt to actually wear it. His old gear had never been uncomfortable, nor could it have been called impractical or hindering, but this new suit, it felt like he was wearing a comfortable second skin. It was so light. Yet, he knew that its durability was on par with Tetsu's metallic skin, if not greater. Even if someone were to take a shot at him while he was exposed and putting his quirk to work, he felt reasonably sure that he would hardly even notice the effort. Still, that's not a reason to get lax, he thought as he knelt down and placed his hands on the area, eyeing a spot of earth where it seemed like a number of villains were gathering. Even as he began to lay the literal groundwork for his trap, Tsukuyomi and Chargebolt were advancing with the vanguard, both of their faces set in determined lines as they readied their own quirks. What do you think? The blonde hero asked as they ran, fear and apprehension both building and fading with the adrenaline of the moment. I think that an opening strike from you may prove more effective on this field, Tsukuyomi answered from within his helmet. Besides, it appears as though one of our specialty targets has chosen to make a grand entrance. One of the front sub-commanders, Chargebolt couldn't be bothered to remember his name at the moment, had emerged from the fortress and was generating massive amounts of electricity that he seemed to be ready to unleash on the heroes as a whole. Not on my watch, he doesn't. Now die, you filthy heroes! The man could be heard shouting. Chargebolt couldn't help but giving vent to a grin before he held his right arm up in the air and channeled his own power in the same split second that their enemy directed his attack at all of them. Come on, is that the best insult you guys can always come up with? He called out even as the electricity began to pour into his own body, sending tingles along his entire nervous system. I think I've heard that same cheesy-ass line from every other villain group we've gone up against. What? Impossible! The man gaped as his power began to fade away. They withstood my attack? Yeah, I heard that one too. Chargebolt snorted even as he lowered his arm to point his index finger right at their enemy. Bits of shifting metal began to fly out of his suit at his command while he said, I should start keeping count of the same lame lines you villains yell whenever you get stomped. But in the meantime, why don't I show you what a real opening move looks like? By the time he had finished talking, there were over 20 small clusters of interchangeable material that looked no bigger than pebbles, all of them floating in a seemingly random pattern around their enemies. Some of them were located near heroes, but they were each too busy with their own battles to notice what was happening just yet. Tsukuyomi watched carefully as his friend's suit began to redirect the blue lightning that had been cast at them, the air around them coming alive with power anew, sending an ominous buzz straight through his bones as well as that of their allies. Kaminari, he said a little worriedly, but the other boy shook his head quickly. I've got this, trust me, he muttered in a low voice. Everyone's trusted me to get this right, so I will. I know what I gotta do. I won't mess it up. Very well, the avian-headed hero nodded as he suppressed his urge to shudder at the continued crawling sensation that snaked throughout his entire body. Here goes, Chargebolt growled as lightning sparked across his body. Bullseye shock! 1.5 million volts! A single thread of white-hot electricity burst forth from his finger, but the pattern it wove was one of nigh unmatched devastation. The lightning struck through the enemy commander's chest, jumped into the heart of one of the hovering clusters, then was redirected into the body of another villain, giving her the same treatment as her boss, so that when the blast had left her body, she was a charred lump of flesh. This pattern continued across the battlefield, leaving nearly 200 corpses strewed about when it was over and done with, and not a single hero among them. Before the battle had even begun, Kaminari had surreptitiously tagged as many of the heroes as he could with some bits of his suit, and marking them as friendly targets, so that his equipment would know to automatically divert any concentrated bursts of power away from them, if at all possible. While the flash of lightning faded away and began to allow others to see what he had wrought, the pieces that had ricocheted his attack swiftly made their return to his suit, becoming one with the material just in time for Chargebolt to heave out a giant, exhausted breath, even as Tsukuyomi was forced to catch him up from falling. "Kaminari," he said urgently, "was the power too great?" "That was nothing," his friend said, though his voice and bearing were still weary as he did. I can hardly believe that I was actually able to do all that." Here he made a vague gesture at the field before them, where villains and heroes alike were recoiling in shock, if not outright horror, at the power that had been displayed as a mere opening act from a teenager. He added a bleak smile as he said, "I guess it's like 13 told us all that time ago. Our quirks aren't anything to mess around with." The thought that their quirks had been refined to such a degree in a matter of weeks with the help of their new suits was both thrilling and terrifying for them to contemplate, but this was war. It was kill or be killed, and the young heroes had no intention of allowing even one hint of Ares' future to emerge in this timeline. It wouldn't be easy, Tsukuyomi reflected as he used Dark Shadow to drive back a group of attackers that was now trying to target his shaken friend from a distance. But they had to survive this. "We cannot know if this carnage will be worth it until we have seen the other side of this bloodied river of fate." "Here we go!" Kai shouted as the group he was with sighted the stragglers of one of the Exodus parties. Already they could see some people who were running after the fleeing civilians with what looked like hostile intent. "Long range, discourage them!" Vernon ordered the heroes closest to her. "You got it!" Deku shouted as he unleashed a handful of lasers that would strike between the two parties. "Don't give me orders!" Ground Zero snarled as he sent a barrage of explosive bolts to accompany the emerald lasers to create a deadly maelstrom of power that anyone with a brain would know not to try crossing. Freezer Burn said nothing, but added a torrent of flames to the mix, even as other heroes around them seemed to pick up on the idea and let loose with their own quirks, some of them aiming more directly for the villains themselves. Seeing this, Kai looked over and yelled, "Hey, we need some of them alive for answers." "We only need one to talk," snapped a man with bear-like traits. "Let us do our jobs, brat." "Up yours, Smokey!" Firecracker shouted as the projectiles made contact with the ground, tearing up the road and halting the villain's advance, at least for the moment. "Kai tells you to jump, you should be asking how high. You little..." "Enemy contact!" Mirtanastra interrupted, her sword flashing out in front of her to intercept some kind of crystalline projectile and flick it away from her and the others. "Tenya, catch up with the civilians, see if you can't figure out what the hell is happening here," Kai called to his friend, who immediately nodded in affirmation. "I'll radio the military forces and request an escort for them," Ingenium Mark II replied as he took off, some of the other heroes around them moving to follow his example. "Keep the enemy from advancing on them while we do." "Done," Kai shouted before he used Black Whip to launch Acid Queen right at their enemies at high velocity. Acid already sprang in circular motions that scorched her targets with hideous chemical burns before she landed among them and started throwing punches alongside Crescent Rose, who had been the first to actually dive into the fray. Seeing another group of people come toward them with what appeared to be active and hostile quirks at the ready, Kai leaped clear of the first battle that was forming, raised his fists high over his head as he did. "Malgus!" he growled as the ground rushed up to meet him. "Smash!" His fist slammed into the road beneath, tearing it apart and sending forth a shockwave mixed with tar and concrete that pulverized his enemies with impunity. As he stood up to observe the results of his handiwork, his ears rang with the sounds of combat spreading throughout the city from this sector, and he felt his heart grow heavy as he was confronted with the reality that the war had truly begun. "Spacing out in battle is how you get kicked!" A burst of black lightning surging from his fingertips fried a man who had leaped down from a rooftop with a flaming sword in hand, sending him crashing to the ground away from the stoic young hero. "I know what gets people killed in battle," he muttered sourly as he began to jog toward an altercation that seemed to be going poorly for the heroes involved. "And before today is over, I'm sure that brand of knowledge is going to be unfortunately commonplace." Around him, he was vaguely aware of his classmates taking the briefest of moments to realize that he had just drawn first blood of this war, that there was a man who would never again breathe because of what he had done. They saw that he had done so because he could not take any chances with his attacker, but that he had ended a man's life nonetheless. They witnessed him once again embrace one of the darkest parts of being a hero, and be capable of moving on from it. As he allowed the power of One for All to swell within him again, Kai allowed himself a grim nod as he saw Ground Zero swerve upward in a spiraling motion so that he could grab a villain off the ledge of a rooftop, stick a grenade on him, then throw him at a cluster of other Liberation soldiers that were taking up sniping positions, resulting in a devastating explosion that left none alive. Nearly simultaneously, Freezer Burn had turned a woman to solid ice and unleashed a short burst of fire that carbonized her partner's upper torso in an instant. So it was that as he ran through the city streets, striking down villain after villain so that his suit's self-cleaning function could hardly keep up with the bloody spree of fatalities that he was inflicting, did he see every single one of the friends he had come to fight beside harden their hearts and do what must be done to put down the evil standing before them. I'm sorry, Gene, Hawk said dully as he beheld the sight of his newest friend curled up in a ball and at the mercy of his feathers. I really am. I couldn't. Twice blubbered as he tried to understand what was happening to him right then. 1 minute the alarm had been sounded that the heroes had found their hideout to charge him with full force, and the next he had been prevented from helping his comrades by being cornered in his own room. The fact that it was someone he had come to depend on and call a good friend made it all the worse. Why? He groaned as tears seeped out of his mask. Don't resist this, Gene. Hawks warned him as he saw the villain start to convulse. I want to take you in alive, give you a new chance at life. Why does this always happen to me? Twice sobbed. First with Big Sis Mag, and then Mr. Compress, and now... Hawks' eyes widened as Twice ceased his babbling just in time for his head to roll clean off of his shoulders, blood pooling on the carpet beneath him as his body went limp. What in the... The problem with long-term cover assignments, said a cold voice from next to Twice's corpse, coming from a cloaked individual whom Hawks had been certain was not there 2 seconds ago. Freezing silver eyes met Hawks' startled gaze from beneath a crimson cowl as the speaker went on to say, even if you hold true to which side you're on, you can't help but make attachments, bonds that can sway judgment just enough that the disasters erupt, regardless of all hours put into making an operation as smooth as can be. At the last part of his little speech, the newcomer flicked a long blade to the side, slinging droplets of blood free from the steel. Hawks felt a chill run up his neck as he recognized the person standing before him. I take it you're the one they call Shadow, he asked as his feathers began to regather on his back, even while the commotion outside began to echo within the walls of the building as the front tried to organize its troops to fight back. A kid? The cloaked figure gave vent to a smirk before saying, My reputation precedes me, and you should hardly be taken aback by my age, given how quickly you shot up the ranks, number 2. How long have you been in here? Long enough. My feathers should have sensed anyone in the room. You a warp type? No, Shadow said with a terse shake of his head. But if I don't want people to know I'm somewhere, they won't. There was a half-second pause before he scowled and muttered, Move. No sooner than he had said the words than did blue flames erupt from the doorway, racing to engulf Hawks in a merciless inferno that would reduce him to cinders. Fortunately, he had great enough reflexes that he was able to escape with only a few singed feathers, which allowed him to turn and see something rather spectacular. That the best you've got? Shadow taunted their attackers. He kept his left palm leveled at the flames that had been unable to get more than a few feet into the room. There was a shimmer in the air that could almost be mistaken for a heat mirage, but whatever it was keeping the blue fire at bay completely, leaving no space for it to even find purchase on the carpet beneath their feet. You damned heroes, a raspy voice muttered as the fire lit up, allowing a tall figure to walk through and stand amid the embers that remained, though they did not attempt to pass through whatever barrier Shadow had erected between them. Your true colors are showing already. Given a chance to act as viciously as the people you call villains, you jump right on it. This coming from the guy who's incinerated dozens of people, many of them innocent bystanders, just for kicks. Shadow deadpanned while Hawks got into a battle-ready stance with a pair of his largest feathers in hand. The cloaked assassin's eyes glowed for a moment before his face stretched with an unsettling smile on the words. I'd ask if your parents ever taught you any better, but I suppose that'd be expecting too much from Enji Todoroki, now wouldn't it? There was a grand total of 3 seconds silence on the room before Hawks shook himself and started to ask, Wait, are you... Kai regarded the villains that had surrounded him from among the trees in a sprawling park with unbridled disdain and contempt as they all prepared to unleash the full force of their quirks against him. Give up and let us make this quick, shouted a woman whose skin and facial structure resembled that of a bearded dragon. You've been cut off from all your little friends, hero. You're completely surrounded and outmatched. At some absurdly early point in the fighting, Kai had fallen prey to a bout of tunnel vision, which was markedly unusual for him. He had broken into a pursuit of a group that had come away from the main force of enemies, unable to hear the sounds of his friends and other colleagues calling for him to come back until he had put more than a mile between him and the closest reinforcements. Wait, how did this happen? He had fumed for a moment. I'm smarter than this. Almost at the same time that he had the thought, his eyes fell upon a villain dressed like a matador, complete with a bright red cape and a golden trim on his uniform. No, he had thought angrily. I did not seriously get baited like a damn bull! Before he could even think to use his quirk to take the man down, the villain suddenly pitched forward without a sound, a massive hole having been torn through his chest and rendering him lifeless in an instant. The hero wondered for a moment what had happened, but then he saw a lone hero perched on a nearby rooftop, a sniper rifle planted firmly in front of them. Something about her looked vaguely familiar to him, but before he could try to hail her on the radio, she disappeared from behind the edge of the building. In spite of the confusion that followed, this allowed Kai's head to clear and refocus on the bigger picture of the battle around him, as opposed to the single target he had been chasing. Of course, by then, the trap was sprung, and the Paranormal Liberation Front had the famed teenager pinned down. Or so they thought. All I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men. The Guardian hero now replied to the leader's demand, adding a harsh cast to his voice as his gaze swept across the gathering that had assembled, quickly noticing the nervous tics that many of them were exhibiting. As he was speaking, he unclipped his saber from his belt and activated the blade, resulting in a black beam of energy that sprung from his grip, casting a strange, shadowy glow upon his body, even in the light of the morning sun. There are over 1,000 of us here, the woman shouted again, seemingly as much to remind her troops of their advantage as much as trying to intimidate him. The Grand Commander wants you alive, but I doubt he'll mind if we bring you to him in pieces. Counteroffer, Kai said as his smoldering glare turned into a chilling smile that he fixed directly on the enemy leader. You shut off your quirks and surrender to become war prisoners before this becomes a complete no-win situation for you guys. No-win? The leader scoffed incredulously. Even with the army and heroes you damn traditionalists have assembled, your side cannot hope to win. You yourself have no way to escape. The moment you try to take flight, you'll be shot out of the sky by over 20 gunners among our ranks. What delusion are you under that you can overcome the odds of 1,400 to 1? Bring 1,400 or 14,000 at me, the result will be the same, Kai answered as his smile widened, his suit scouter having alerted him to an incoming biorhythm that he had been waiting for. This fight is already over. You want to know why? Because you're deluded, the woman muttered as she raised her arm in preparation to give the open fire signal to her subordinates. No, villain! A booming voice thundered from above, one that caused everyone but Kai to flinch and pale to an unhealthy color. 1 second after that, there was a resounding impact less than 10 yards behind the young hero, causing a dust cloud to jettison upward from the force of the broken earth, obscuring whatever had crashed. It is over because... Kai flicked his fingers behind his back to cause an air burst across the clearing and dispel the floating dirt, revealing 600 pounds of rippling muscle dressed in a cape and tights made up of all the primary colors, topped with golden blonde hair and a smile that was enough to make some Paranormal Liberation Front warriors simply faint on the spot. All Might jabbed his thumb into his chest, flexing his rock-hard bicep as the borrowed power of Energon flowed throughout his body, boldly declaring for the first time in a long time, I am here! Mei Hatsume was not used to feeling frustrated. Her process of invention involved innumerable failures, all of which she had always reused as brain food in order to create unique masterpieces that no one else in UA's support course could possibly hope to match. She was methodically spastic with her creations, never slowing down, never turning away from a moment of inspiration whenever it struck. Even if her pacing could never be called consistent by others, it had never bothered her whenever a project seemed to be slow to progress, because she knew that it would all come together eventually. So why was it that the pace of her current project seemed so damn slow all of a sudden? Maybe it's because that Hikari kid has been on my shoulder for so long with all those amazing mod matter babies that we made together. She mused as she forced herself to reapply her determination on the schematics in front of her. She was hard at work in the support course lab, her mind occupied solely by the development of one new programmable matter application that would be going into the suit of one Hitoshi Shinzo when one of the computers across the room started bleeping rapidly. At first she ignored it, but after a couple of minutes the tone it was using started to get on her nerves. Hey, Hikari, she called without looking up from her project. Your thing is making noise, trying to work here. When she didn't get a reply, she forced herself to look up and snap, This isn't gonna... Oh. For a moment she had forgotten that she was completely alone in the room, but she couldn't remember why that would be. It wasn't until it clicked that even Power Loader was absent that she said to herself, Wait, was that big battle thing today? When the room simply continued its silence, with the exception of the notification sound still going off from Akarui's computer, she shrugged to herself and moved toward the device, knowing that it would likely keep going until someone turned it off. Her look of annoyance quickly transformed into one of surprise, then alarm when her eyes detected alternating flashes of red on the computer. That can't be good, she thought as she hurried to stand in front of the computer, whereupon her eyes widened considerably. That's a lot of no good, she gulped as she turned around and broke into a run, not even bothering to acknowledge the notification that was continuing to flash on the monitor. She had to find the principal or one of the other heroes who might have stayed on campus. Failing that, her hand shot into her pocket as she ran and dialed one of the few contacts she bothered to keep in its memories. She found herself praying for the first time in what had to be years as she muttered, "Come on, Hikari, pick up. If something happens to you, your brother's going to kill me and all my babies." You guys detecting any traps? None, which honestly has me more worried than if a turret suddenly popped out and started firing. Jean muttered into his comm as he peered around the corner of a short hallway. His team and Taiyang had already evacuated the building of any civilians, all of whom seemed stunned at the thought that they had apparently been playing host to a villain upstairs for some time now. Under normal circumstances, they might have left one of them behind to ask the civilians some questions that might help them understand their target. But other than checking that no one had gone up or come down the stairs that day, they knew they had no time to waste. Umbra needed to be captured now, and this was the first, and possibly only, lead that they were going to get, now that Akarui's solar intelligence was gone. If the elusive villain was half as smart as he claimed to be, there was no way he would continue to use the same methods of communication that had led the heroes to him now. As such, Taiyang and Jean were at the head of the party, with Pyrrha and Nora right behind them, and Ren bringing up the rear. All of them were properly armed and ready for the first hint of danger, but as Jean had noted, they had yet to encounter any traps from their enemy. Did this guy seriously think that we wouldn't be able to find his home base, so he just didn't booby-trap it? Nora asked curiously as the two blonde men exchanged an uneasy glance. Might have been too conspicuous to set up a trap where there were civilians working downstairs, Taiyang answered in a lowered tone. There's something to be said for hiding in plain sight, but this doesn't feel right, Pyrrha murmured. Hikari, do you think that this could be a trap? Probably is, the boy on the other end of the line said in a strained voice. If you guys think it's best to wait for backup, you can always hold your position. I can tap into the camera feeds, keep an eye on the room where he's supposed to be hiding, make sure he doesn't slip out via the window without you guys knowing. Do it, but we're going in, Jean decided abruptly. Even if this is a trap, our friends are out there risking their lives because of this guy. Even if it's too late to stop him, we can make sure that he answers for what he's done to them. We probably won't get another chance like this. Looking over his shoulder, he then said, Nora, you're going to take point this time. Your quirk has the best chance at dealing with any tech-based countermeasures he's got ready for us. Pyrrha, I want you right behind her. Got it, Nora said as she stepped around the corner and made straight for the door at the end of the short hall, her hammer at the ready and a vicious smile plastered on her face. Hatsume was nearly out of breath as she jogged up the stairs to reach the third floor of the teacher's dorm building, but she did not stop until she had reached her destination, a door with the label Hikari next to it. Hands shaking, she reached up and knocked on the door rapidly while shouting, Hey, kid! You gotta get out here! Those sensors you installed last week were tampered with. Someone might have broken onto the campus. It looks like it would have been close to this building. There was no reply for several seconds, and Hatsume felt a chill run down her spine as a dozen thoughts ran through her mind. The teacher said he might be a target for the bad guys, but they weren't supposed to come for him yet, right? She thought as she grasped the doorknob and moved to throw the door open. She could hear the humming of several machines at work, which she took to be his computers, meaning that he could well be hard at work even now. Maybe he's got his headphones on so he can't... All thoughts were obliterated the instant the entrance was opened, a terrific explosion ripping through the building, annihilating the contents of Akarui's room beyond recognition, and leaving Hatsume as a burnt, flattened mess in the room opposite of the boys, having been thrown clear through the door. She barely registered the sounds of the fire alarm blaring in her already ringing ears before she lost consciousness and gave into the dark of a forced slumber. The door to Umbra's room was thrown clear off its hinges to embed itself in a wall after Nora's foot connected with the wood, admitting the light of the sun into a dark, somewhat spacious room that was littered with what looked like computers and other technological pieces whose function Team Juniper could only guess at. Near the wall where the door had crashed into, there was a high-backed rotating chair where Nora could make out the shadow of a person sitting with their arms folded in front of them, as if they hadn't a care in the world. In those circumstances, there could be only one person so arrogant as to calmly sit through the arrival of a hero team, even if they were only high school students. With a yell of rage, Nora put every bit of power that she dared into a driving force that would slam into Umbra with just enough force to break his bones, but not quite kill him. The same instant that she did, however, her suit made a sharp clicking sound, and suddenly the girl found that all the strength was gone from her muscles, causing her to slump forward and land nearly flat on her face with a grunt of surprise. Pyrrha reacted first, her quirk triggering to repel all manner of technology in Umbra's vicinity, smashing his equipment to bits before he could even flinch, sparks flying to briefly light up the room and cast a twisted shadow of their enemy on the wall before the image was gone, and the hidden figure was left in a dark, illuminated only by the obstructed light of the hallway. Right after that, Jean and Ren moved in quickly, their weapons ready to disable the unseen figure, until there was another sharp clicking sound that came from each of their suits and leaving them all in the same state as Nora. The sound of a shotgun being chambered finally seemed to be enough to force Umbra to turn, his right hand pointing straight at Taiyang as he swung his fist with every intention of blowing his enemy's entire ribcage away. Before he could unleash his ammo, however, something flew from Umbra's fingertip and buried itself in the hero's neck, causing him to also go limp, though he was more vocal in his defeat, giving vent to an animal bellow of pure rage as he realized that his entire team was now at the mercy of the shrouded figure, who hadn't even bothered to get out of his chair. "How did this happen?" he silently seethed. "Pyrrha destroyed his tech. He shouldn't have had anything to use against us." "You made a grave mistake, assuming the only traps I could lay would be those you could walk into," said a hoarse voice that came from the seated figure, whose face was still obscured by the shadows of the room. "You never bothered to check for the trap that could be etched into your own skin." "Wait, that voice!" Jean grunted out as he tried in vain to shift his head so that he might get a glimpse of their enemy, but only just managing to spot the figure in the corner of his peripheral vision. You can't be!" "Strictly speaking, I'm not Umbra," the figure replied, his voice still raspy as if from disuse. "He is." There was a soft blue glow that emanated from his body, which quickly took on the form of a particularly familiar face that caused all the heroes to widen their eyes in a mixture of horror and terror as they began to understand the true nature of the threat that they faced. "I am Umbra," the holographic being said, sounding sad as it did. "For the record, I had hoped that we would never meet, especially since I knew that it could only be under circumstances such as these. But events have unfolded as they must, and now there is no going back." "An AI construct double?" Taiyang snarled. "That's how you pulled this all off?" "How could you?" Pyrrha gasped out as she tried to make her quirk work, but utterly failing to even make one piece of her armor move a centimeter. "What possessed you to do all this?" "I never wanted this," the figure in the chair replied sadly, finally standing up and moving into the light so that there could be no mistaking his identity. "But as my other half said, this is the way that things have to be from now on." As the hologram faded out of existence and he stepped over the prone forms of the heroes who could only watch him leave in a helpless rage, the figure dropped the flash drive behind him onto John's back, which was quickly absorbed by the material of his suit. "Give that to my brother once the fighting is over. He'll know the password that'll decrypt the files." With that said, Umbra's partner departed, tears streaming down his face as he refused to spare a backward glance for the people demanding that he come back and explain himself. After all that he had done, Akarui Hogosha would never look back again.
I've been waiting for the right time, running up and running, leaving behind. I don't wanna leave my chances out in the cold, 'cause I feel the weight of the world. I see it, I reach it, to the summit that I never know. I need it, I reach it, every step takes me farther from home. I see it to the end, I see it to the end.
Well.
The maniacal laughter. Are you pleased with yourself?
I'm so pleased with myself. I think this is the only time in all my writing that I didn't tell you about a plot twist.
I was so furious.
Y'all remember how we talked a couple years about how she threw a Rubik's Cube at me?
I was so angry. I couldn't even talk to him for the rest of the day. Like, we're not a couple that does that.
I am so clingy. I am constantly talking to this man.
Oh, yeah.
I adore him.
Oh, yeah.
I was so angry. And so if you're angry with him, don't worry. Don't worry. You're on the same page that I was 2 years ago. Now you get to feel the pain that I have been holding in all of this time. Now you know why I've been fighting for this chapter to be released sooner.
Oh, man.
Okay. I think we're all gonna need some therapy. All right. Well, let's
I would save the therapy for later because you don't want to pay for too many sessions. Just let the trauma all happen first, then go to therapy. That's how that works.
All right. Well, let's unpack.
Okay. All right. We unpack. So we have the opening scene with Umbra, right? Like, I went back. I remember, like, I've had to go back and reread some stuff to you before. Like, how did it change for you, like, knowing who Umbra was?
Oh, it broke my heart.
Like,
I'm listening to this conversation, and it's like, at this point, I know Akarui is resigned to what's gonna happen because he's accepted that he can't come up with any other alternatives in his perspective, and it broke my heart because I knew how hard it was for him to just give in to this, if nothing else.
Yeah, like, something I gotta say real quick. I had always intended to do this. Like, from the very beginning, from the very conception of Akarui's character, I'd always intended to do this. What I did not expect was how much people grew to like him. Like, that was, for me, that was like, it wasn't quite out of left field because, like, I wanted people to at least be okay with him. I didn't expect him to basically become more likable than the main character.
He's the fan favorite.
He's the fan favorite, yeah. So I'm like, as we got closer to this, I'm just like, oh man, I think I'm about to tank my whatever is left of my fandom.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It was a surprise to me that everybody grew to like him so much. But on that note, I'm like, because I had this reveal planned, I was like, oh, this is gonna lend way more impact.
Which is why you didn't tell me because I freaked.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Anyway, so he has this conversation with his AI
Dylan.
self.
Yeah.
This is basically the AI version of himself that he created. He basically was like, okay, I can't do this on my own. I can't figure this out. And this is the course of action that I can think of right now. But if I think of another one, I will override this, right? And he couldn't think of another one.
We'll get more into that at a later time. But yeah, basically, so yeah, the AI construct was Umbra from the beginning. And Akarui created him. He created him shortly before things with Humorize really took off. Yeah, he created. So like this will be revealed explicitly later on in the story, but the actual day that he created Umbra was the day that Kodai tried to give him One for All, and he was like, giving me One for All is stupid and dangerous. Like, this is stuff that'll have to be covered later on in the story, but that conversation definitely informed what he did next.
Yeah. Okay,
But-
that makes sense.
Yeah. So we get this. So like, we got this. You had no idea.
No idea.
You had no idea till like the last paragraph,
Like,
right?
these guys are a lot more sharp than me in some ways, so I feel like they're probably going to start picking up on it.
Like, I wanted to
earlier.
I wanted to have this opening scene specifically to throw people off. Because it's like, Umbra's been this hidden bad guy, like, who's aiming to ruin Akarui and Kodai. And now not only do you see that he's not acting alone, you see that he's filled with some kind of regret for what's going on. But you also see that he's not going to back away from it either.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just, like, I honestly thought that might tip you off.
I was just like, okay, so we've got Umbra, and I was like, who is this? Is it Shadow? Like, I was trying to figure out
That's
like,
fair.
what the other player might be.
Fair enough.
But I was like, but he's not carrying himself like Shadow, so that doesn't make sense. And so I was kind of confused there.
Yeah.
But that being said,
So we get we have, like, this is a long chapter. There's a lot of stuff that happens in
there's
this
a lot to
chapter.
unpack.
My
So
goodness.
we're we have the beginning of the action.
No, we don't even have that
No?
yet. We have everybody getting ready for the action. We have Kurtai and Eri talking about, it's like, maybe we should switch the plan up last minute. Kurtai's kind of like, no, we've gone over. It's like, we've gone over this. It's kind of too late to change the plan now. You got this. You're ready. It's like I enjoyed having Jakku kind of come in with the final reassurances where he's like, look, he's not as strong as what you face in the future, and you're stronger than you were then. You're
that
more
was
in
a
control
really
now.
important one for her to hear. And I think that, and then, she even said it is like, okay, my hero is literally in my corner, so I think I can do this.
It's like, I wanted to make it a somewhat less dramatic version of Deku and All Might, because, if All Might was saying that kind of thing to Deku, waterworks are going to be happening, but he's ready to go. I kind of wanted to skip over the waterworks, and it just honestly wouldn't feel in character for any of these people. Like, if Deku's the one giving the advice, I don't feel like he'd be in waterwork mode. But you can definitely get that sense of it. Like, there's a very deep appreciation in there from that she's getting this from her predecessors.
Yeah, and I think she's the kind who's like, okay, nervous, got some reassurance. Okay, let's go, let's do this.
Yeah. We talk about some of Ingenium's sidekicks and what their role is in all this. Kind of getting like a bigger picture of like, okay, so these guys are thinking not only about like, okay, this is the war that's about to happen. We need to figure out what's going to happen with the hospital situation.
We've got so many hero agencies involved in this. This is a large scale.
It's straight
operation.
up war.
Yeah.
And something else to remember is like in the original show, the military wasn't involved. This time they have they have military regiments out there with them. So it's going to get pretty crazy pretty quick. This is like actual warfare instead of guerrilla street to street fighting. Well, no wait, let me take that back. There is still a lot of guerrilla warfare that's to be happening because it's happening in a cityscape as opposed to like in an open battlefield. Yeah. But the numbers have been made up for. Yeah. For sure.
We get to see a little peek on the cool new armor that Akarui has designed for everybody.
Yeah, we're starting to get a look at a few people's new armor design. Like, I wanted to have sketches of everyone, but it's just like I don't have the time. And honestly, I lost
him into posting this one sooner than he was going to.
There was that, and like honestly, I was a little burnt out on artwork for a little while. Like I'm finally back in a place where I'm starting to put out some pieces. Like you'll see with like you guys can see have seen in this chapter with the new artwork. Like that was fun to make. That was a fun one to make. Yeah. I have an altered version of it as a screensaver on my computer. I'll be by the time this drops, I may or may not have released it on Instagram, but I'll either release it in tandem or like right before this video drops. So it's gonna be the monochromatic colors.
Nice. Yeah, I like the altered version he's talking about. So definitely a good one.
Yeah. I had fun with just a little bit, like just Bakugo's getting more and more fun to write, where he's just like telling Kurtai, he's like, okay, do not die this time. Don't do it. I'm not gonna stand for it if you die again. He's just like, we're all done with that. Don't do it.
Love my Bakugo.
And then, what did you think of Eri working with Mirko?
It was really interesting because I think especially because Eri surprises Mirko because like you just think, oh, okay, cool, two like powerhouse young girls, let's do this, and then Mirko is 20.
Mirko's 28 years old.
Yeah, but I mean they're still young.
Okay,
both of them are young.
Okay, yeah.
They're young heroines. But but I think coming into it, Mirko's like, all right, cool, little mini me, got this. We both have white hair.
Well, no, Eri still has the black hair right now.
Oh, that's right.
But and something else is like Mirko doesn't like doing team ups. Like her attitude is that her whole attitude is that team ups just cover for the weakest person in the group. So she's like, the way she's seeing this when she first comes in, she's just like, why am I playing babysitter? What is up with this?
Okay, I guess I didn't catch that part.
And then Eri as Chronoa kind of flexes for a second, and everybody in the vicinity is like, oh, maybe we don't mess with this one.
Oh, and when she gets in on that doctor, holy cow!
Oh yeah, Mirko's just like, oh my god, she's crazier than me. And that was fun.
Gotta love the "What's up, Doc" with the bunny.
That freaking killed me when they did that in the show. Yeah. When they did that, that was the episode closer. She goes, "Hey, what's up, Doc?" I lost it.
Oh yeah.
I lost my mind laughing. That was one of the highlights of the season for me. That season 6 was a great season. There's a ton of great stuff that happens in there. I know it's dumb, but that just absolutely sent me.
That was hilarious.
I'm not saying it's the highlight. It's one of the highlights.
You're funny.
I'm sorry. That was really funny to me. I love Looney Tunes.
I don't mind that you included it. It works. But yeah, anyway, Eri freaks her the heck out. She's like, oh, this kid that got dark real fast. Hello.
Yeah. It's like, again.
Shy kids got trauma.
And she's not even being that shy. She's just kind of quiet for the most part. And it's like,
well, compared to Mirko.
What I love doing with this is that, every time, you mention Eri, because of the way that this fandom is structured, you're automatically going to think of the little girl. Like, that's just where your brain goes to automatically, because that's who you associate that name with. I love playing on that, like, not expectation, but that implantation, that idea in your head, that it's like you almost default to expect her, default to expecting her to act at least some degree like that, and in some ways she still does. Yeah. But again, this is 10 years older who's been through hell, and she's got a chip on her shoulder, and she's got stuff to pay back with interest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that was
so I feel like a lot of the hospital scene was similar, but there's a few things that you changed up. Yeah,
there were a few things that I changed up, but one thing that I want to touch on really, really quick is that bit that Eri talks about how if I can't find a way to prevent my future, then I'll make one. This is a callback to when she was fighting alongside Kudai for the first time against the leader of Humorize, and he's giving her the lessons like, doesn't matter if we can't find a way, you have to make one. So you see, I really wanted to take the opportunities in this chapter to show, like, the ways that Kudai and Deku have both affected her.
Yeah. In
this time, not just in her future as an idea, but like their hands-on mentorship toward her. But yeah, we didn't quite get to the hospital yet. First, we have Akarui playing both sides here.
It was so painful. I had the hardest
time. Like what?
You
were cringing? Like when you were cringing, or
no? It's just like now that I know, like hearing it for the second time, I'm like, oh man.
It's like, this is
little guy's being duplicitous, and like you can tell he's off.
Yeah.
You can tell he's not himself.
Well, and that's the thing. He factored for that. He knew there was no way he was going to be able to hide his emotional state. But because the atmosphere is so charged for everybody,
no one's gonna
think twice about it.
Everybody's feeling
Everybody's on edge. Everybody's like, great, we're at war. Like, we all got to do this stuff that we don't want to do. He had to play on that.
And like his moment with Mina, just, I cried this time. I cried because I knew, like, no. He knows that he's saying goodbye.
Yep.
And like,
this time you're aware that it's like he's saying goodbye to her.
That killed me.
He's saying goodbye to her. He says that he loves her.
Yep. And it's just like me, like, adoring your brothers and seeing them as my brothers. Like that kills me. Oh my gosh, just because I have a relationship like that. And so it's hard.
That scene, more than most of the others in this chapter, killed me to write.
I believe it.
I was like, I'm dying inside as I write this. It's gonna be so good, but I'm killing myself.
I was determined not to cry, but when you read that part, I was tearing up for sure.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Like, I was trying to be emotionally detached as possible because
if you knew if you let yourself feel things, you were gonna feel too many things.
Yes, because there's so many things to feel. It just keeps going.
Oh my goodness, yeah. But I like to think that I hid the full implications of this thing very well. Like, I don't think you really got like a sense of this is the final time they're ever gonna talk.
No, it was like you could tell like he was thinking maybe that could be the case.
In hindsight, yeah.
But
because like he gives that warning, he's like you can't take chances today. He's like he is doing unironically he is doing everything that he can to protect her until the last second possible for him. And it's like, and at this point, it's not even because she's his brother's girlfriend. It's because he loves her.
Yeah, she's his friend.
Yeah.
Like, just like, but I mean, and she means the world to his brother. And so more than anybody, it's like, you need to be careful. Like, he knows stuff's about to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And he's kind of having that moment.
Where if you go back and read it, like, for him, it's almost he's known in his head that this was going to be the last time he could help her. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, you see it really start to hit him, like, this is the last time I can help you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my God. I can't.
Sorry. I'm not trying to bring the waterworks
You're
back
good.
on.
You're good.
So I know that there was one line in here that just made me lose my head laughing, which I don't know what that says about me, but I had a really good
laugh.
I had a really funny time with Ochako saying, like, you might have better luck convincing Shigaraki to become a hero than getting Kunai to land anybody his motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
So
I'm like,
funny.
I don't know what kind. I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't know what kind of mood I was in when I wrote that, but I just thought that was hysterical.
Nice. Good for you.
I'm sorry.
It was funny. I'm still emotionally.
You're still
Sorry.
Emotionally damaged.
I'm sure I can appreciate it in a couple of years. Couple more years.
Couple
It's
more
been 2
years.
years at this point since you read this to me.
Oh man! Now we get to the hospital scene, and Mirko, Chronoa, boom down the hall.
Yeah.
They're going to take out Nomu.
Speedy girls doing their thing.
Yep. And then we got a big surprise coming in for who gets to capture the
My
doctor.
heart. Oh, this like, I really, really want to know how this got pulled off. But even so, it's just I don't remember.
Last chapter, Eri was with Aizawa at the hospital, and Aizawa was getting super emotional. She did it.
But how do you change his mind? Like, even if you rewind his body, like, I'm trying to understand.
So the way that it works is that so Shirakumo was still in there somewhere. He was still inside of Kurogiri, and we see this in the original one where President Mike and Aizawa talk to him because they're trying to figure out who did this to you. Like, help us get revenge for who did this to you. And for just a brief second, their friend comes back out and tells them, you need to look for the hospitals.
So he's still in there.
So he's still in there somewhere. So Eri just had to bring him back out.
Got it.
So yeah, so it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as what she did with Kurai. So it's like he was clinically dead, certainly for a while, but All for One and Dr. Shenanigans, they brought him back to a pseudo life kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So she was able to work off of. So even in spite of her new code of ethics, for lack of a better term, she was able to be okay with bringing him back like that.
Okay.
And like he's not suffering any post-traumatic stress after being yanked out of the afterlife, because basically the way that my head has it is that he was essentially in some kind of limbo, because like he wasn't really dead,
Like
but he
a
wasn't really
stasis.
he wasn't really dead, he wasn't alive either.
Got it.
So does that explain all that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that explains what Eri was doing last chapter when she was hanging out with President Mike and Aizawa.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a really fun scene to write, where he's just like, "Hey, Doc, thanks for helping me. Time for me to thank. I didn't get to say thanks for all the help you gave me."
I love it. I love it so much.
Oh man. Then the battle kicks off. And something that, like, this was a hard scene to write in the sense that we have Kurai kind of struggling with, like, they've talked about how they're going to need to kill people. But of all of his classmates, Deku and Ruby are the only ones who have actually done that.
Not Blake.
Blake has also done.
Say.
Sorry, in the course of the events that we've been viewing in real time, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So yeah, Blake's done. Ruby killed the Chimera villain with the help of her teammates. Deku and Kurai killed 9.
Yeah.
So like 4 of them out of 24 students, they've actually killed people, and he's going in his head, and he's like he knows that they can do it. The question is whether or not they'll hesitate. So he's resigning himself to the fact that he has to set the example.
Holy cow, does he? I was like mortified with the violence in this chapter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I warned everybody that this one was gonna get really freaking dark.
It was pretty. It wasn't like, I wouldn't say super graphic, but it was
graphic enough that you can picture it.
Yeah, it was a little.
Yeah, no. First dude he kills, he just straight up electrocutes, just
like,
not even looking at it, just flicks his fingers at him, lights him up like a Christmas tree, and just drops him.
Yep.
And right after that, everybody else sees, oh, he did, like, there is definitely something to be said for mob mentality. Like, you'll see these studies about how, like, there will be, like, they do this at buffets. It's really interesting. They've done a few studies on this where people will be told, you can eat anything you want, like, it's all on the house, like, don't worry about it. And people will just sit there and not move until a plant, like a planted test subject, or for lack of a better term, one of the plants gets up and goes to the line to start grabbing food. Then everybody else starts following. Like, on a very instinctive level, people will follow whoever is the leader.
Well, it's kind of like
whoever
those studies where they'll
first.
just have a couple people standing in line, and there's no sign. There's like, nobody knows what the line is, but people just start getting in line.
Yep.
And it's like, why are they there? They don't know.
Yeah.
They're just in line. Or when someone goes and they face backward in an elevator, everybody who gets in the elevator will face the same way as that person.
See, I've never seen that one.
That's another one of those social experiments where people will face backward in the elevator, and then everybody else faces the same way.
Interesting.
It's just
I'm
something
gonna have to test that out the next time I get in an elevator.
I think I'm a little different because I am always a corner person. Always, wherever I go, I just automatically go to a corner. I got to see all the exits. Just a trauma thing. I don't know. Yeah. But I don't know if it would work on me, but now that I'm aware of it, it probably wouldn't. So all that to say, could I he's not as smart as Akarui, but he understands human psychology. Yeah. And he understands the mob mentality bit. And he sees this as, well, he doesn't want them to hesitate and get themselves killed at the last second. He wants to keep them alive. He's like, I have to get the ball rolling. He knows that he's capable of doing so, but he just kind of has to resign himself to it as part of that. And then we've got, what was your thought when you realized that the citizens were like all evacuating, before they should have known to? I was very confused. Because we get Todoroki very quick. Because we kind of get Todoroki starting to think, he's like, why does this all add up so well? Yeah, he's like, Umbra's the only person he can think of who would be smart enough and resourceful enough to pull something off. But that seems like that would be at odds with what they know of Umbra. If I'm being honest, it's been so long since I heard it the first time. I don't remember what I thought. I remember being like, okay, this is off. Mm-hmm. What is about to happen? Like, at any point did you start feeling like Umbra maybe wasn't all that he had been portraying himself to be? Well, I could tell that Umbra, obviously he hired Nagant to protect someone. I was like, okay, interesting. No. What? I'm so confused right now. So yeah, we've got it seems like it could be Umbra, but now we know it is because we know who Umbra is. Yeah. But there's still going to be the question of how did he pull that off? Because he got all the civilians out without tipping off the villains that were there. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that was Umbra doing that. That wasn't Akarui. That wasn't Akarui. So before anybody starts wondering what the heck's going on, Akarui is definitely quirkless. That being said, he copied Umbra before his quirk was taken away. Yeah. So he I can already hear some people being like, "That's cheating. He kept his quirk." Not quite. Not exactly. It's a separate entity. It's a separate entity. It's very, very similar, yes, but not the same. Not to mention, they're not going to be helping people from now on, or they're not going to be helping the heroes from now on. Mm-hmm. They've marked themselves. They're like, all right, cool. We just made ourselves an enemy of everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was so I was doing my best to kind of just sprinkle throughout again. So far, Umbra's been this unknown, terrifying entity that it's like what.
it's like, what is this person's end game? Like how are they doing this? What are they aiming to accomplish in the end? And now we're starting to get these ideas of like, wait, something's off. He's not all he's not all that
He's
says
got a
he
different
is.
agenda than we were originally thinking.
Yeah. Although he does say at one point, he's like, you're mistaking me for a traditional villain. He's like, I have a different agenda in mind. So like he straight up told them the truth there.
Yeah.
It was just because of who it was coming from and the way that it was being said. They lost the deeper meaning on it.
Well, that being said, we start moving into the action. Kaminari has like a really cool moment.
Yeah, I didn't plan ahead for this moment super in advance, but once I had the opportunity sitting in front of me, I'm really happy with what turned out to be the product. Because I was like, these are two characters who just like they don't hang out very like. It's not that they have anything against each other. It doesn't seem like they have very many common interests. And this is especially true in this version because in the original, Kaminari and Tsukuyomi learned to play instruments together. In this version, Kaminari wasn't part of the instrument part because Yang took over for the guitar.
That's right.
And Kaminari was put on the dance team. No, he was put on the effects team. And, kind of get a little bit of an insight as to how that felt for him.
I thought that was Tsukuyomi.
No, Tsukuyomi still played.
Oh, okay.
But so in the original, both Tsukuyomi and Kaminari played. In this version, it was Tsukuyomi and Yang.
Okay, so these guys, they're able to kind of connect and have some time together, which is pretty cool.
So and I felt like Kaminari deserved a conversation like this one because it's like he feels kind of out of his depth. He's like, I don't know why he's just straight up like, I don't know why they picked me to come on for this thing. He's like, there's all these other people in our class that they could have picked, and they go with this guy. Why? And Tsukuyomi's kind of just having to help him chill out a little bit. But like, I thought it was gonna be harder to write Tsukuyomi like being not nurturing, but like being supportive.
Why not? Because I feel
I don't know what, like, because he's normally very taciturn. Like, I'm not saying that he's unkind. It's just like he doesn't usually go out of his way to help his classmates.
I don't know. I feel like I disagree because when Tsukuyomi says something, you listen because he doesn't talk a lot.
Oh yeah.
And he often says things that are not necessarily glass half empty, but he's good at stating what needs to be said. Like very similar to Sue almost. Like when he says it, it's like, oh, there's some wisdom in that. You've been thinking a lot. Just because you don't talk a lot doesn't mean you're not really chewing on everything that's going on. And so I think that Tsukuyomi, if not being nurturing, he's just kind of like Mr. like almost wisdom of the group who can just really, because he spends a lot of time really thinking about
and like I love stuff. How like I think what helped sell me on this conversation was that Kaminari's like kind of like trying to measure himself up to Kurai, and Tsukuyomi is like one of the few people who has seen Kurai like absolutely lose his crap. It's like he's not the only one, but there's like it's like once I realized that they were being paired up for this conversation, for this undertaking, I was like, wait, I have this opportunity to like like not tall poppy syndrome, but like kind of have Tsukuyomi help Kaminari have Tsukuyomi remind Kaminari's like, he's still human too. He still screws up. He freaks out. He's like, he freaks out harder than we do, almost. And just to have that humanizing element, I think helped do a lot for Kaminari in this.
Yeah. And I like his character, so I always like him getting some screen time.
Yeah. Like, whenever Kaminari's not around Mineta, I think he's a pretty solid character.
Yeah.
Mineta just brings out the worst in him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, what was I saying? And then we kind of get him, like, we kind of get Tokugami being like, yeah, I know you're crushing on Jiro. and and then, I just liked having that little bit at the end there where Kaminari is like, hey man, could you like help me ask her to play some instruments? He's like, why do you need me to help you remember? He's like, because I think I'm gonna chicken out if I just try to do it on my own, honestly.
Did you just make a chicken joke to the bird of the family?
A little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. At least Hawks wasn't there, you know?
Yeah. Anyway.
And then we have Team Juniper along with Taiyang Xiaolong. They're like, this was another really hard bit to write because it's like they're trying to be stealthy, but at the same time, they're like, he knows we're coming.
Yeah.
They're like, he knows we're
Which
coming.
is frightening. So it's
Yeah.
like, what does he have waiting for us?
And they still know so little about him that they're like, okay, he probably knows we're coming. He's gonna have a booby trap. And the longer they proceed without a booby trap being sprung, the more they're
freaked out.
the more freaked out, the more they're like, what has he got ready for us?
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, if he doesn't see us coming, that is nothing more than stupid, dumb luck.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just resigned to this. Like, they're like, we think we can take him, but maybe not all of us walk out of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, that's gotta be terrifying. I'm like, do you think that I played up the tension, like, with each interval?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm like, originally it was just supposed to be all in one segment, but I was like, that didn't feel right. Like, that didn't feel like it was amping it up enough. I was like, I need to split this up. So I ended up segmenting it in between different portions of what was going on.
You've struggled with in the past, but I think it works for high tension situations.
Yeah, cutting away and then coming back when things have moved along just a little bit more, I feel like helps, like, kind of get you closer to the edge of your seat, kind of thing.
I like that.
Yeah. And then we come on scene where Eri just goes absolutely ape crap, insane.
Which is what I kind of covered earlier.
Yeah, but it's, oh man, that scene was so cathartic to write on her behalf. Because she's just like, she's getting to stop her future before it even gets started, and she gets to take an active part in that. That has got to be all the catharsis.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and you can tell that Bakugo was one of her teachers for the longest, because she's just gone feral. Like, I think one of my favorite things about this Eri is getting to show little pieces of Bakugo and Aizawa's influence on her.
Yes.
Every once in a while.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm about it.
Oh, it's so fun. And then we've got so then we cut back to Kaminari and Tsukuyomi as they're doing the opening moves to the battle. And I think my favorite part of this was Kaminari just taking the piss out of the Liberation Front commander, because he's spouting all these cheesy one-liners. And I'm not gonna lie, I had been watching some Dragon Ball Z Abridged when I was writing this up, and I had got to the part where Frieza is just so bored of all of the heroic speeches that he's keeping a mental list of how many times he's heard the same line over and over again. And I feel like Class 1A has just run into so many villains that some of them have to start this running.
Absolutely.
One or some of them have to start this running joke at some point where it's just like they're hearing the same line over and over again from different villains. I'm like, you know what? Kaminari deserves a funny moment here. I'm gonna let him get the ball rolling on this, where he's just like, I need to start keeping a list of how many times I hear the same thing from you guys.
Love it.
What? Impossible! He withstood my attack? 90. That was my strongest blast. 84. This next one will do them in. 52. Okay, what are you doing?
I love it.
But then we have that undercut by the absolute, like I wanted the first display of what the programmable matter suits can do to just be utterly horrifying. He drops 200 people with one shot.
Yep.
Just zap. 200 people dead. That's how quick that happened. And it wasn't just in a straight line, it was all over the battlefield, so you get this sense, so you give the villains the sense of no one is safe. And they're all looking, and it's a kid that did it. And they're all just, so give them a good 5 seconds of what just came at us.
Oh my gosh.
And then you have Kaminari on the other end, where you call back to that first lesson with 13, where she's talking about how your quirks can very easily kill people, and you need to be aware of that. And they've been training for so long where they would make themselves as good as they possibly could without killing somebody, but now they've been told time to cut loose, don't hold back. And he has this moment of this is terrifying. I've had this power in me this entire time.
Yeah. That's got to be horrifying for him too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So it's like it's like you thought the mental health appointments were done. Maybe Kurtai's broken enough that he won't need to go to the mental hospital anymore, but everybody else is gonna need some psychologists after this. But yeah, it's like, I mean, like, you know, you get like, I like that moment where Tsukuyomi catches him up, where he thinks like the power, like the overload of power did it to him, and he's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Is he brain dead already?" He's like, "Are you okay?" And no, Kaminari just almost collapsed because of the sheer magnitude
of what he just did. Yeah.
So it's like big moment. Like so like that does a couple things, that and like shows just like how hard Akarui worked on these suits. Like he's taking their quirks to new heights that they could only imagine.
Yeah.
And like, I think Kaminari has a line about that, like, that's terrifying, that it's like just a year's worth of training and these new suits, and we're being taken to this level of deadly. It's insane. Let's see. Then we cut back to Kurai and all of them, and they start the fight, and you kind of get this little bit of back and forth where there's already some contention where Kurai's like, "Hey, we need to leave some of them alive because we need to figure out what's going on." And some of the adults are like, "Who are you telling us what to do?" And then others are like, "Do you know who this is?"
Yeah.
It's like it's like he says jump, you ask how high.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we already have some fragmentation going on in the groups, because some of them leave because they're like, okay, we need to figure out what's going on with the civilians. How'd they know to do this? We also need to make sure, okay, let's get the army over here. We need to provide an escort for these stragglers because we don't want the villains coming after them. Oh, wait, the villains are already coming after them. Time to run interference. And it's just like things are dissolving already.
Yeah,
There's that
chaos.
saying, battle plans never survive first contact. They had this idea that they were going to have to be fighting against the villains while they were doing evacuations. Now that part's been simplified, but because that has become such a drastically different starting point for the battle, it's already throwing them. They're like, okay, we have to recreate, we have to redo our plans on the fly here. Like, this isn't even starting the way that we thought it was going to. Like, it's like, and you can tell if you go back and read this again, knowing that Akarui is Umbra, you can see just how far he slanted things in the hero's favor. So things are technically easier for them, but there's still some of that getting lost in translation stuff that happens. Which, yeah, I can go on and on about that, but it's like things aren't starting the way that they thought that they were going to. So now things have changed up, and as soon as stuff really starts flying, Kurai does his thing, kills a guy, and then you see the others start to follow suit. I think Bakugo's kill was probably the most brutal one. Do you remember what he did? So he like jets up to the top of a building where there's people like shooting at them with their quirks. He grabs one of them, puts a grenade on him, and throws him at his friends and blows them all up off the building.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, it's incredibly Bakugo.
Him, yeah.
It's incredibly Bakugo, but just like, he's actually out to kill. He's like, he says, die this time, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And then like, Todoroki flash freezes someone from the inside out, carbonizes another one.
One, that's the one that freaked me out.
That's the one that freaked you out?
That was the one that caught me off guard. I was like, I don't know. Like, I was like, I didn't think that he'd actually be able to do that.
Well, you got to remember, like, when Eri was telling you about the future, Dabi's one of the people who did the worst. And so, like, that's definitely lighting a fire under him.
Yeah.
Because he's like, in his head, it's like, because in the future he didn't stop Toya sooner, he's going to feel a secondhand responsibility for everything that went down.
Yeah.
So, like, and you'll start seeing this with a few of the other characters that, like, as the fights go on, where it's like they are fighting for the future that their future selves failed to prevent, essentially.
Yeah. So
they're like secondhand guilt kind of thing.
Yeah, and they realize that this is literally kill or end of world.
And like,
situation.
Todoroki doesn't strike me as a person who's like, if you told him like, you need to go out and kill these guys, I don't think he would fight against it too hard, because he's practical in that sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, there was that whole thing. Then we get the scene with Hawks and Twice. Right? Did that play out kind of the way you were expecting it, or was Shadow's interference like a little bit out of left field?
Shadow's interference totally caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Totally, because I mean, it did not play out the way Dabi wanted it to play out all. And then you have this, and then, Dobby can't even have his big truth bomb.
Because Shadow figured out who he was.
Yeah.
And, immediately, you just see this shit-eating grin on his face, and he's like, oh, I know how to play with this. He is an absolute sadist.
Oh, yeah.
He has no it's such a weird code of honor that I've established for him, and that I almost have for myself, because, he can do this to anybody. He can do this to anybody. Friend, foe, anybody. It's only his sense of, twisted though it is, his sense of morality is the only thing that keeps him from doing this and exploiting this on people who are his allies. Just as a rule of conduct, he doesn't, he told Nagant, he's like, I don't probe any deeper than surface level with you guys.
Yeah.
Basically just to let himself know if he's in danger, and to basically be like, okay, you haven't seen me.
Yes. Very Bataris of him. It was...
Well, here's the interesting thing is that I didn't realize is that most of the people reading this, if they've encountered Bataris before, they're used to the Einkrad version of him, right? Who doesn't have psychic abilities. I'm used to writing him with his psychic abilities. That's why this version of him is so familiar to me and so easy for me to slip back into. Most of the people who have
read the novel.
They don't know what he actually they don't know what he's like when he has his natural capabilities.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't click on that until recently, where I'm like, okay, this is why. These people don't understand how horrifying he actually is.
Is there anyone on the Discord who's read the novel? I
don't know that there is.
Whoa.
Maybe one or two of them. I'm not.
Okay.
Maybe I think Silver may have.
I was gonna say I feel like Silver did.
Silver may have. But yeah,
maybe
I'm gonna venture
maybe
that
Joe Clone.
Maybe I'm gonna venture that
no,
most
I'm
of the
thinking
people,
Robin might be.
Most of the people that have read that are reading Your Hero Academia have not experienced Mataris with psychic abilities.
Dang.
Which is which at least to me is his default.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is just the way I'm familiar
for
with
you,
him
this
being.
is run of the mill, right?
Yeah, because this is how I met him. He's always been like this.
Yeah, and then every other version of him that you've met has been kind of dumbed down almost in terms of power.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is peak Mataris. He's on top of his game. He's ready to go. He has clearance to go. So he shows up. He takes care of business because and this is the interesting thing. He takes out twice without playing any mind games with him.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for there's two reasons for this. One, it would be kind of redundant for him at this point because he's like, all right, yeah, Hawks has already broken this guy. Two, because of the way that Twice has been broken, he knows that this is about to become a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say because Twice is a heartbreaking character.
Honestly, I don't feel sorry for him.
You don't feel sorry for him?
I don't. He was just straight up a guy who became a criminal and suffered the consequences for his actions.
See, and I feel like my heart breaks for Twice for sure. I don't like Toga, but I always feel sorry for Twice.
I honestly don't feel sorry for Twice because the dude he was a criminal from the beginning. He was always doing bad stuff. I mean, maybe there was something in his childhood like Shigaraki or the others where it's like, okay, yeah, I can see why you turned out this way, but we're not provided that.
Really everything in his little origin story is selfishness and self-absorption.
Yeah, it's literally he was the victim of his own hubris.
Yeah.
Where his own clones tied him up and almost killed him.
Yeah.
Because they were each just as selfish as he is. Mm-hmm. They didn't get that from somewhere else. That's literally his own ugliness was eating at him.
This is true.
So there, for me, there's literally I venture to bet he had a normal childhood.
Probably.
I'm gonna bet that he went to school like a normal guy. Maybe he was the funny guy. Maybe he was the funny guy in school, and maybe he just had a hard time getting a job after college. But you know what? Man up, dude. Keep trying until you succeed. It's or ask for help. That was one of the biggest problems with Twice is that he didn't rely on others. Mm-hmm. After his mental break, he was kind of forced to rely on others as a crutch. But that wasn't brought about until he literally broke himself.
Yeah.
So, again, for all these reasons, I don't pity Twice.
Okay.
He literally did it to himself.
Yeah. Maybe it's just
in a very literal sense, he did it to himself.
Maybe it's just because he's so likable.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's anime Deadpool.
Yeah,
He's funny. I enjoy writing him. I enjoy having him on the screen, but I do not empathize with him. I don't feel sorry for him as a character.
Okay. I never. Yeah. No. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't know.
No,
I feel more sorry for Hawks in this situation.
Oh yeah, because he's
just like he's heard of Shadow, but he sees him and he's like, "You're a kid."
Well, also Hawks just like he was part of. I think a
Oh
part
yeah,
of Hawks.
Hawks felt sorry for Twice.
Well, and a part of Hawks is like, man, I wish I could just like get this guy to make the right choices.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
he'd be a great.
He was trying to do
person.
that.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Shadow just comes in and
just
splat.
wastes him.
And it's like, oh, thanks,
Which
buddy.
Hawks ended up doing in the original, but he doesn't. This version of Hawks doesn't know that.
Yeah, and it's just like he's still hoping he can talk him around, you know.
But
'Cause
again,
he feels for him.
Mataris, reading into both their minds, understands
He
like this is
knows
about to turn
it's about
dangerous,
to get
not
bad.
just for Hawks, but because of Twice. He's like Twice isn't. He's like Twice is
And
Twice
I'm
is not going to be
sure
reasoned
he
with.
senses who's on his way too.
Oh
so,
yeah, he's factoring for so many things right now.
yeah.
But yeah,
Brutal, but it kind of
brutal but effective.
Yeah.
He's all right. Business is taken care of. Let's move on to the next one.
And meanwhile, Hawks is
And
like,
Hawks is just like suffering the worst case of whiplash.
Excuse me, you just
I
murdered
did
my
enjoy
secondhand friend.
There was one bit that I enjoyed where Hawks like has the bit where he's just like, "You are a child."
Yeah.
And Shadow's just like, says the guy that shot up to number 2 at the age of 20. Because here's something to think about. It hasn't been officially revealed. Mataris is 18. No, he's 19 years old here. He's just turned 19 years old, which would have been about the same time that Hawks made his debut. So like, Hawks is 3 years older than Shadow. Like, there's not a huge age discrepancy.
Yeah.
I'm basing this off of a lot of people would confuse me for being younger than I actually am.
Yeah.
And you know, this is becoming less and less of a problem now that I'm like growing up. Like, I wear a beard more often nowadays, so people have less often mistaken me for someone younger than I actually am. But at this point in my life, I definitely would have been mistaken for a kid.
Yeah.
Like someone who's in high school. Like 100%. So just kind of getting to play on little things like this. I'm sure everyone can tell that I'm having fun writing this character again. But yeah, so we get Dobby coming in. Dobby's pissed, and then Shadow just pisses him off even more. And he's
Just
having
rips the rug
he's
out from
having
under
the
him.
time of his life while he's doing it too.
Oh yeah.
And Hawks
Oh,
is
yeah.
like, please don't. But oh man, yeah, that was a loaded scene to write.
Oh
but
yeah.
I cannot say that I didn't have fun with it. That was a really fun
It
scene
was.
for me
I mean,
to
the
write.
original one was so powerful, and so this, I was curious to see how you would do it in this one, and so it works for everybody who's there, and
Yeah.
the interactions that they have.
Oh man, it was. It's a lot. Just
Yeah.
oh man, so many things happening in this chapter.
Yes.
Then
because...
we get Chronoa freaking ambushed. Like, I knew that this needed to happen, and I'm like, how do I make this happen? Like, I honestly kind of, I smacked myself because I was like, I just had this moment where I was like, I'm so dumb. Because I was trying to figure out, how do I contrive the battles, like, as a series so that Chronoa gets slowly led away? When I was just like, wait a minute, I'm like, superpowers. I can literally just make this happen. There are 100,000 villains out there. One of them has to have this kind of hypnosis quirk. I can literally, originally the villain that did it to him wasn't supposed to be a matador, but after going back, I was like, wait, this guy just red flagged him like he's a bull.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just gonna go whole hog on this.
Which is
I made the villain into a matador.
It's a very anime thing to do, so why not?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I can be all kinds of ridiculous with this, but it works.
And like, he's taken off guard that he was tricked,
Yeah.
but at the same time, all of a sudden he has this realization that there's something coming.
Oh yeah.
And he starts talking,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm
well, real quick. So the matador gets dropped. That's when he's finally able to he starts to realize, wait, something's off. The matador gets dropped by a sniper, Guess who?
I wonder who.
Guess who? And then he's able to realize the situation that he's in. And he's just like, you have got to be kidding me.
That being said, all of a sudden he starts being really cocky. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, this isn't like him. Why is he talking like this?
No, normally, like, if he's in that situation, he wouldn't exactly be afraid because he's confident that he can come out of it.
But he's not going to come out.
But he's just straight up being cocky.
I was like, what is... Oh.
And then, again, this is one of those scenes where it's like, you didn't realize until the line dropped where I did it in All Might's voice.
Yes.
And I just remember seeing, like, the biggest grin getting on your face.
Oh, yeah.
And you were so excited.
I was so excited.
I was like,
you can't
I was
not
so happy
be
because, like,
when All Might shows
the
up.
way you were smiling was the way that I felt
Yay.
as I was writing this. Because I was like, I can bring back All Might. I can bring back All Might. I can bring back All Might.
Yes, and so All Might is rewound. He doesn't have one for all.
It's not the same. It's not.
No?
So like, Eri rewound his organs and his stomach so that he's healthy again, right? She didn't rewind him to have one for all back, but yes, Jakku supplied him with a huge amount of energon.
Yeah.
Like, he put like a week's worth of power into this guy.
Yeah, which is I will take it.
Because
I will take it.
Because like he's on borrowed power, but he gets to be All Might again, and you like in that one opening scene, you can just see how happy he is. Like, even though the situation they're in is terrible, and it's like
he has a chance.
He has a chance to redeem himself. He can protect the next holder of One for All, like he wanted to do with Deku, but technically failed to do. Now he gets to do his job again, and he's just so happy.
That being said, you make us feel so great, and then you just rip the rug out.
Oh man, because I threw you for so much. No. I did a double. I remember because like I did a double take for you. Technically a triple take for you on this one.
I was so upset
because we get Hatsume. She's in the lab. She's like, "Where's everyone? Oh, they doing that battle thing. Okay, I guess I go check out this alarm. And that's near the dorm rooms." So she runs up, and like there were so many little things that went into her character development for this because it's like Akarui is like on one of the because she doesn't remember to do stuff.
No.
But you see that Akarui is important enough to her that she has his contact information saved. She knows who he is. She knows that if he's in trouble, this is bad.
Yeah.
So she's like running out of the lab.
Which is not like her, but yes.
No, not at all. You would never see her do that in the original
That's the closest thing to a friend she's ever had, I think.
That is her friend.
Yeah. And so I genuinely thought you killed Aki here.
Yeah.
I genuinely
you thought that Umbra had killed Akarui.
I did. I really did.
Man. No wonder you threw the Rubik's Cube at me.
I was so upset.
Oh man, do you think that fed into why you were so upset at the reveal?
Absolutely, because then I totally thought Team Juniper was gonna die too. I was freaking out.
But then it's like, oh, Akarui's alive. Oh no, Akarui's alive.
Yeah.
Is that about how?
Thus, we get to the Rubik's Cube scene.
Oh my god. I went over, reworded, resmithed, rewrote this scene so many times because I was like, I need this reveal to be at the absolute last second. Like, I figured that there would be some people who figured it out in advance, but I didn't want it to be confirmed until the last second.
When their armor started failing, I was like, no.
You didn't know it was Akarui there.
I didn't, but I started wondering, like, wait a minute.
It's like, how good actually is this Umbra?
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, oh, he's that good?
Uh-huh.
Oh, man. Yeah, you just like, oh. And it had to be Team Juniper who found him. It had to be them.
Why?
Because anybody else would have been too close to the situation. In a sense, they were the only ones that I could throw at the situation who could be even minutely objective about it to realize like the abject horror of what was going on.
Yeah.
Anybody else, like anybody in Class A, would have just gone catatonic.
Or just been confused. Like, what are you doing here? Like, take time to process. Like, what?
No, because Akarui would have sabotaged them the same. He would have done them. Yeah. He would have knocked them down the same way, and it would have left them just. Like, not brain dead, but real damn close.
And just really betrayed. And I mean, of course, Team Juniper feels betrayed, but they don't have the same level of...
It's more of a secondhand betrayal because
they don't have the level of closeness to Aki that everybody else has.
But they know that Akarui is good friends with, their friends.
Yeah.
With Ruby in particular. Like, they've, like Ruby helped him get out of his chair, essentially. Like, she's one of the reasons that back when he was in a wheelchair, he was able to find his voice again.
Yeah.
They connected over that.
Yeah. That one got me.
Yeah. Also kind of helps that they're more similar in age than the other people. But
I shipped them so hard.
oh yeah.
I did.
I think that ship has been sunk with this.
Yes.
He kind of
It has.
he kind of shot her dad with a poison dart of some sort or another. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, like I almost told you about this like when I was conceiving the character and what his plan what the plan was for him. But honestly, like there was this curiosity in me that I just had like I had to have it answered where I was like what
And
if
you got the answer.
What
6
if
sides.
I was
With
yeah
this very sharp corner in the face.
in the face, guys. She did not hold back. She pegged me with a Rubik's Cube in the face. That's what I get for keeping a secret from my wife for 3 years.
I promise I'm not an abusive wife. I was just
She's
very
not.
angry.
Like this took me so far, but I was like, oh my god, I thought she would be upset. I didn't think it was this upset. That'll teach me to keep secrets.
He knows better.
But you know what? Like, if I had to keep a secret on any literary revelation that I
This
conjured,
was it.
this had to be the one.
That was it.
This had to be the one.
I'm so anxious and excited to hear what people think.
I think you're less anxious about this one than when I brought Chronoa back.
I'm not anxious per se. I'm more like excited to see the chaos ensue.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Sorry, the
Sorry.
dog is alerting me that she needs something.
She wants scritches. She's
yeah,
very needy.
She's being very needy today. She just came and booped me with her nose. Said,
But yeah.
excuse.
Like, I gotta, like, I need, like, how long did it take for you to, like, wrap your brain around, like, this is the case going forward?
Months.
Like, it's like, this isn't just a one-off, like, surprise thing. This, like, completely destroys your idea of what the story was going to be going forward.
Yeah, completely. I mean, honestly, it's taken until now for me to really recover. Let's be real.
There's a meme that Silver made months and months and months ago.
I remember this. This is ringing a bell.
This is ringing a bell. I'm gonna pull it up because I'm just like, oh my god. I'm like, I saw that he did this and he had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
He had no idea that he had basically just spoiled the
entire,
big
I know. Yeah,
thing.
I remember when he posted that and I was like,
I was like, I have to be, like, I saw that, I was like, I have to be so careful in how I react and what I say next.
Yeah, I remember you saved it to your phone. You're like, oh my gosh.
I was like, I have to save
Was
this.
this like a year ago or 2 years ago?
Something like that. Like
Yeah.
a year or two. I think it was like a year ago. I was like, I have to save this because I have to put this
remember.
back in the Discord chat after they have seen this chapter.
Yes.
Because I want Silver to kick himself so hard for this one.
We'll see if he reads it.
He's reading it.
Oh, he is?
He's doing a catch up. He's doing a catch up. I'm just like, I'm like, I can't believe that he did that and not understanding how close he got to the mark.
Yeah. Well, that being said, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, the only closing thought I have is that I'm very excited to see how everybody reacts to this one.
Don't hate us.
I mean, you can hate me. I'm used to it. Don't hate my wife. She actively pushed for the last 2 years for me to speed up the process
And do you know how
so that you
hard
guys
it
can
was?
get to
Yes,
someone.
I've been trying to get him to speed this up.
You sped it up by like 2 weeks.
Yeah, because he's very stubborn. But I mean, I've been holding this in for 2 years. So
Imagine me holding it in for the last 5.
You know what?
Imagine me holding it in for 3 from you.
No, I don't feel sorry for you. I'm sorry. I really don't. Do you know how many times I've said that today? Oh, you fell in your chair after I told you not to tilt it? I don't feel sorry for you. Sorry. Oh, you smudged your artwork because you put it on top of somebody else's wet artwork? Sorry. I don't feel sorry for you.
Okay.
No.
There is one more thing I need to say.
Okay.
The reason I'm surprised that people hadn't figured this out, and there's a specific group of people, the people who read my Shattered Fragment story. I'm surprised that they didn't figure out something was up sooner. Because I've done this almost exact thing before with Crimson. Is literally an AI version of Mataris, who turns out to be the final boss in the end.
Yes. I was thinking about the same thing too.
And no one picked up on that might happen again. I'm sorry, guys. This one's kind of on you for not seeing coming. I'm not apologizing. I'm not retracting that. This is kind of on you guys for not seeing this one. If you've read Shattered Fragment. If you haven't read Shattered Fragment, I'm still not apologizing. This was awesome. This was so good. But if you've read Shattered Fragment and you didn't kind of see this one coming, it's kind of on you.
Way to toot your own horn, buddy.
I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just like, come on. You guys are so observant and you've read my stuff. You should know how I roll by now. Come on. Oh, man.
Yes? Are you Angel? Are you perfect Angel?
My dog is... my. That's tooting your own horn over there. That's tooting your own horn.
Yes.
She is preening at how perfect of a dog she is.
Yes, she's so gorgeous. Anyway, sorry, I'm distracted. I need to go cuddle my dog and recover emotionally from what has been an ordeal and a half. So
I feel like I'm
love you
about to be on
guys.
the end of some serious verbal abuse.
You are. They are gonna meme the heck out of you. They're gonna throw fits. And
My
leave
defense
the
in this one is
chat.
I didn't even lie indirectly about this. I just said nothing about this. I
Yeah.
just said nothing about this
You're
one.
gonna. Do you know how many of the? I want to. We need to place bets after this on who's gonna be dramatic and leave the chat, and then ask them
Silver.
back.
Silver's gonna be dramatic and leave the chat.
100%.
100% Silver's gonna be dramatic
Okay.
and leave the chat.
Can you hear the dog crying? She
Okay,
wants
all
love.
right,
She
all
needs
right,
cuddles. All right.
all
Love
right.
you guys. Don't hate us.
Have a good one. We'll see you guys after we get back from vacation. We're gonna go have a plus ultra vacation. So there. Bye.